receiving this transmission. You are the resistance.
The globalists are a bunch of entitled nobodies that were handed power by the robber baron class in the last 100 years. They were handed power to try to control the population, and all they've done is screwed everything up and basically created a lot of unintentional comedy as they get more and more insane. Like Morgan Freeman coming out yesterday and saying that basically we are at war with Russia. He basically then goes on to declare war on Russia and says they're our enemy. It's the same talking point that they have put out on many other outlets, many other publications, from GQ to CNN. Keith Olbermann's been spouting it. Russians scum. We are now at war with Russia. We are at war. These are quotes from Morgan Freeman. And they just follow this same insane, beyond McCarthyite statement, because McCarthy was right about the Democratic Party and the Russians when some of them were communists back then. And their government was led by it. It is amazing. That's all coming up. And video of Hillary saying she's the modern-day Paul Revere. Yes, I'm not joking. I talk about unintentional comedy. There it is. It's very sickening. That's up on newswars.com and infowars.com. Tucker Carlson is on fire in a clip we're going to play. He says we live in a country with deeply corrupt institutions breaking down the illegal spying on Trump and on his coterie of advisors and campaign officials. Caught red-handed. And we have an epic fail video coming up of late-night comedy. Late-night comedy. So-called teleprompter reader programs where they sit there and engage in comedy about as funny as your neighbor's dog going to the bathroom on your front lawn, and just demonize America, demonize flyover country, demonize Christians, and lie about Trump, and say over and over again, he's an idiot, he's a liar, he's a scumbag, he's a fool, nobody tapped him, nobody tapped Trump Tower, nobody tapped his campaign chairman. And now we know that Trump was absolutely correct, because it's all coming out in court, and it's all coming out in congressional investigations. They were using the FISA court, they were using the FBI, they were using the Justice Department, and that's just what we know about. But remember, we saw James Clapper, the guy that a few years ago said, we don't spy on any Americans ever, which was total perjury. He's the same guy making the rounds going, oh, no, 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 no. We've never spied on Trump. And, of course, he's been proven to be a liar. Talk about egg on their face. And he's another doddering, arrogant nobody who was put there by the corrupt establishment because he'll engage in any criminal activity he can. He'll engage in bald-faced lying to you over and over again. He's another sniveling nobody who's been feeding off this country forever and is an absolute disgusting creature. Now, yesterday, right after I got off air, a huge earthquake, 7.1, hit right in the middle of Mexico City. And Mexico City is built on a giant fault line and is surrounded by extinct volcanoes. Some of them, though, are semi-active. And I saw the videos of folks out, you know, on the river laughing as the waves slosh back and forth, or people standing around videotaping hotels, swimming pools, sloshing back and forth. But then we began to learn that it's now more than 248 killed. That's the latest numbers out. At least 20 children. So this is a disaster, obviously, and absolutely horrible, and hits one of the largest cities in the world. 20 people in the city, another 15 million metro, 35 million people. This is just terrible. And I knew it was going to be bad financially yesterday, but we didn't get reports for hours of deaths. This is really a giant disaster. I mean, wow. And just like it's said in biblical times, things come in clusters. We've got the biggest hurricane ever to hit areas of the Caribbean. We're going to be getting into as well. It's all coming up. Stay with us. And we've got Trump's speech at the UN. Wow. Just last week, we saw a 8.1 earthquake hit southern Mexico, northern Central America, Guatemala. And we pointed out that much of the Americas that goes along the Pacific Rim has been overdue for megaquakes, according to most of the seismologists and experts out there. And you can see how all along the Pacific Rim, down the Pacific coast of North America, Central America, and South America, you see big, giant quakes going off, particularly in Mexico in the last 2 weeks. Now, you know who's next in line. El Norte. So we're dealing with a 7.1 that hit right dead smack middle in the big valley surrounded by volcanoes that is Mexico City. And you've got the rest of the Pacific Rim, the most active it's been in recorded history. And that earthquake that hit Mexico a week and a half ago was the biggest ever recorded since they've had seismology, since they've had seismographs. And the latest numbers to come out, they're rising by the hour, unfortunately. 20 children, school children, among the 248 killed in Mexico after their school collapsed during a 7.1 magnitude earthquake that triggered explosions, collapsed buildings, and sent people fleeing into the streets. And the footage is obviously dramatic. We're talking about swimming pools being completely emptied out because they're sloshing so hard. We're talking about 5, 10, 15-story buildings collapsing, larger buildings partially collapsing. And we were covering it right as the broadcast ended yesterday. It went into Owen Schroyer and Roger Stone and the War Room that airs 3 to 6 p.m. Central now, syndicated radio/television. So we had live coverage of that. But I had no idea, because so many of the videos we saw were people taking it in stride or just holding on to a tree, that it killed so many people. And undoubtedly, this is so big that this is the biggest disaster probably ever in Mexico history, because the population is triple what it was just 50 years ago. So metrically, as populations go up, as there's more buildings, as there's more infrastructure, earthquakes, even if you have more sturdy buildings, are still going to statistically kill more people. And California is due for an 8 or larger at any time. So just put that in your pipe and smoke it. So we should all be praying for Mexico and trying to send support down there as well. However, the different charities and organizations see best for us to donate. Obviously, smaller charities are generally better that have long track records of helping folks. The Red Cross, love my wife to death. I noticed her checkbook laying there, and she'd written a big check to the Red Cross. And I said, baby, I know you're smart, but if you're going to give to charities, please do research. I gave a check to Salvation Army for what happened in Florida, and a week before what happened in Houston. Not because I'm some goody two-shoes guy, but it's just the right thing to do. Plus, the Salvation Army, about 90% of the food, the shelter, the blankets, the educational training, things like that actually gets to the people. And it's a Christian organization. And it's far from perfect. It's got its problems. But the Red Cross is an anti-gun, anti-Christian organization. A lot of good people volunteer for it, like my wife. But it's just so frustrating because you don't want to tell somebody, hey, you're giving to a bad charity. You don't want to put somebody down. So everybody, just do your research. That's all I'm saying. Because the Red Cross is a globalist organization. At least 248 people are dead after a 7.1 magnitude earthquake hit Mexico yesterday, causing widespread devastation across Mexico, where a school has collapsed. 20 children and 2 adults were confirmed dead after being found in the debris of the Rebsman school, with a further 30 children and 8 adults still missing as 2 a.m. today. The tremor struck near the state town of Rabaso, am I pronouncing that right? About 75 miles southeast of Mexico City, and came on the anniversary of another devastating earthquake in 1985. See how history rhymes or repeats itself? It also came just days after another 8.1 magnitude earthquake, which struck Chiapas, killed at least 98 people, and hours after nationwide emergency practice drills. Horrifying images coming out of the country's capital show rubble strewn across roads and enormous chunks of collapsed buildings laying on the ground, with hundreds of terrified locals fleeing onto the streets. Volunteer rescue worker Pedro Serrano, 29, a doctor who was one of the rescuers who managed to make it inside a collapsed school where he found a classroom with all of the occupants dead. That's not a fun job, is that? Oh, man, that's horrible. Mexico earthquake has killed a lot of people. So pray for folks, give them support, and most importantly, realize that this is a very, very unstable planet we live on, very close to a big unstable sun. And the only thing constant is change. And so when they tell you pay your carbon taxes, or they seize on this and say, oh, look, it's Trump's fault, God is cursing us, which the Democrats and liberals are doing. I have a big story from Infowars.com showing it. You have to understand that this is part of life on this planet. And this is what happens. So if a tsunami hits you or an earthquake happens, that's not because you're an evil person. It's because that's the ever-changing planet we live on. Hurricanes, cyclones, typhoons, earthquakes, volcanoes. When Mount St. Helens blew up in, 1980 and killed thousands of people, it's not because Oregon was evil and deserved it. It was because we live on an active volcanic planet. That's why. It's part of life. The way God curses us is us cursing ourselves and being corrupt and being evil and letting corruption take over. And if you look at all of the abuses of government and corrupt institutions, it's hundreds of times what natural disasters are. And I love how the left always says it's voodoo when some Christian preacher says, we've been hit by a hurricane because there's gay people in Florida or whatever. And quite frankly, that is discrediting voodoo, in my view. The preacher doesn't speak for God. But it's just as bad when some leftist says, good, God sent a hurricane to kill all the rednecks in Texas or kill all the Trump voters in Florida. When movie stars come out and say that, it's mental illness. It's wrong. When when people like Jennifer Lawrence say that. We're going to be covering it all, and here's a report. Trump offers condolences to Mexico after 7.1 quake. Leftists still attack the president on Twitter. God bless the people of Mexico City, Trump tweeted and stated. Within minutes of the 7.1 magnitude earthquake striking Mexico City Tuesday, President Trump and his wife offered swift condolences. But that wasn't enough for leftists, many of whom didn't bother to check whether the U.S. president had commented on the earthquake. Instead of focusing on the relief efforts, Trump haters predictably used the latest Mexico City quake as another opportunity to attack Trump. City catches on fire, 2 deadly hurricanes and counting, and at least 50 people die from earthquake. Trump, yeah, no climate, no real. What does that mean for Mr. Tryhorse? It's another stupid voodoo statement. Others even blame Trump for the earthquake, and others asked if Trump would finally acknowledge climate change, with one stating, God's not helping, so we have to. Wanting Trump to, again, come out and make statements he'd already made. Here's another statement. Waiting for Trump to ignore the earthquake in Mexico City, still deny climate change is a thing. So now they're saying earthquakes are man-made anthropogenic climate change. First it was global freezing was man in the 80s. Then it was global warming. Then it started cooling off a little bit. They went, it's just change, period. And now they've moved on with the total made-up garbage that earthquakes are caused by humans. No, they're caused by the gigantic sun that's firing all different sorts of ions and different radiation wavelengths at the giant Earth. And then that energy goes in and builds up on the outside and penetrates the crust, and it causes electromagnetic reflections with the nickel core of the planet. It's got so much gravity, it's solid, even though it's super hot. And then that causes all sorts of reflections back and forth between the crust, the mantle, and the core of the Earth with the sun's radiation, and that's directly linked to earthquakes. What's been happening the last 3 weeks? Mega mass coronal ejections from the sun. And they haven't been directly hitting us as they shoot out like flamethrowers, but then as the sun turns, the dissipated storms still hit us, and they're massive, and they blow out satellites. And if you're an astronaut up there and one of them hits you, it'll kill you. And that's what's driving these earthquakes is the sun, the sun, the sun, the sun, the sun. We'll be back. All right, I really wanted to focus in detail into what's happening with the Mexico megaquake that's killed 248 people at least, a lot of them children, because you bet your bottom dollar the United States is next. Those earthquakes are making their way up along the Pacific Rim from the south towards the north, and the U.S. is 12 years overdue, according to every seismologist we talk to. The USGS, they all admit it. The L.A. Times is running ads saying, get ready. So folks need to understand this is serious, and we are all in the crosshairs of this. It's bad for the economy. It just devastates things. A hurricane is bad. Earthquakes like this are extremely deadly, and they just wreck buildings and destroy infrastructure. And obviously, I'm stating the obvious here, but this is serious. Now, that said, I'm going to play an 18-minute boil down of Trump's 35-minute over-the-top powerful speech from yesterday, because it's so important coming up in the next segment. This is why we elected Trump. And you've got leftists and globalists gasping in awe and horror when he discredits socialism, when he discredits Orthodox radical Islam, and when he promotes nationalism. This is everything we've ever wanted. And it's not just words, because promoting the fact that socialism and communism is failed and oppressive and evil is the truth, and will further discredit it at a time when mega banks are trying to reboot socialism and communism because they're multinational, they're not affected by it, and they want to be able to use those oppressive systems for control as a new colonialism. Netanyahu's come out and said Trump's UN speech the bravest in 30 years. Absolutely. And you can say what you want about Netanyahu, folks. He's not trying to overthrow the U.S. He's rooting for our economy. He's trying to support Trump. They're trying to remove him. They're trying to put him in jail for his wife having the government chef cook dinner for heads of state at their house. That's what they're trying to put her in. I mean, say what you want about Netanyahu. Everybody, it's just so fashionable to hate Netanyahu and not know why. That's the corruption? Is a government chef cooking food for the prime minister of Israel? Wow. That's like Colonel Schaefer. They tried to put him in jail for $45 cell phone bill to his wife because he blew the whistle about our government protecting Al-Qaeda. So a lot is happening. That's coming up. Incredible video and audios on Infowars.com. Hillary Clinton says she's the modern-day Paul Revere. You've got the bizarre footage with Morgan Freeman. Very, very sad, because Morgan Freeman's said a lot of good things as well. But what I'm told by Hollywood is he'll say whatever he's paid to say. The guy's made hundreds of millions of dollars. He's probably the most cast actor in Hollywood. I mean, he's in everything. And he says, we are at war with Russia. In fact, the exact quote here is, he says, we're at war with Russia, close quote, and he declares war on Russia. And, of course, that's financed by Clapper. Is actually on the group that financed it with the neocon Max Boot. So that's all coming up as well. And we've got the Kremlin's response to that. We have another powerful video. BLM and Trump supporters shatter divided America narrative. The Trump supporters just invited Black Lives Matter to come on up. They were just the useful idiots that had been financed. They weren't totally controlled. They realized it was all a hoax. And by the end, it was a love fest. And it's starting to happen all over the place. If it's actual Black Lives Matter that aren't totally financed and just don't know, and then show up and learn there's no KKK members there, then it absolutely changes their paradigm. That's why the media was so scared at my rallies that we held with folks at the RNC, was that you'd have more than half the people weren't white. And man, there were writers there from Mother Jones, Newsweek, Time, and they looked, I saw them looking at those crowds, and they were scared. They were looking at me, and they later wrote about it and said, this guy's got minorities listening. We're in trouble. That's right. Minorities want free market. They want prosperity. They don't want to live in communism or socialism. That's right. We're winning the ideological war. That's why you're panicking. And that's why you're scripting myself, Ron Paul, Rand Paul they're trying, Mike Cernovich of all people saying we're white supremacist. That's like saying we're snowmen or something, or we're elephants, or we're walruses. I mean, it's just everybody who knows who we are knows it's a lie, and all that does is wake people up more. And then that's what's coming up. Darren McBreen put together an incredible compilation video of all the late night shows making fun of Trump, myself, and others for saying that there was illegal wiretapping. Now it turns out we were exactly right. They have royal egg on their pathetic teleprompter reading faces. Ladies and gentlemen, a private corporate world government is now partially in place. It's totally unelected. It's tax exempt. It has diplomatic immunity. It believes it's going to establish a world government based on technocracy. And at Davos, Bilderberg, you name it, they all call themselves technocrats. That means an unelected system of bureaucrats using technology to control a political system known as a technocracy, or control by computer, and a ruling oligarchy of technocrats. That's all fancy names for high-tech authoritarianism. I'm about to air excerpts with John Bound breaking it down of the incredibly historic and powerful speech. And we're posting this full video in the next hour to Infowars.com and Newswars.com. Then coming up, just to illustrate how morally bankrupt CNN, but also this ne'er-do-wells university is, they still haven't fired him or condemned him. CNN ignores Antifa, dead cops tweet, focuses on Trump golfing instead. We have this Professor Chicken Neck, who keeps tweeting about, some of y'all might think it sucks being an anti-fascist teacher at John Jay College, but I think it's a privilege to teach future dead cops. And then he goes on to make other statements about how good the dead cops are. Just randomly, you know, if a cop does something bad in another state, well then, you know, just a cop driving down the street or sitting in a red light, you know, pop a couple bullets in their head like BLM and other folks have been doing. BLM-connected people. It's sick. It's an attempt to start a civil war, and it's crazy. So that is all coming up. We're also going to get into Tucker Carlson. We live in a country with deeply corrupt institutions. We live in a country with deeply corrupt politicians who are illegally spying on us, getting into the illegal wiretapping that totally vindicates myself, Trump, and so many others. And then, as I mentioned, we're going to get into some of the statistics out there. I've told people this over and over again because the CIA admitted this in the 50s. Aldous Huxley wrote about it in Brave New World Revisited and other publications, that the plan was to pump pornography everywhere, not for freedom, but so that you would be so used to hardcore pornography that it would be, to give you a George Orwell quote, like a bowel movement, or washing the dishes is how they describe it. And that your children would then be taken from you at birth like you take eggs from a hen. These are all quotes from George Orwell and Aldous Huxley kind of mixed together, because they were elitist in the Fabian Socialist Society of England and were let in on the real plan. Well, here it is. U.S. teens slower to drink. You think that's good, right? Or have sex than previous generation, study finds. And a lot of Christian conservatives are like, oh, that's great. You know, they're being more lordly. No, they're not. They're watching hardcore porn. They're taking drugs, hardcore drugs, and they are not hanging out with real people, and they're not having babies. And the birth rate's imploding in the West because everybody does simulated sex now. Simulated sex. It's one thing if you're like to look at a 1960s Playboy and it's a beautiful woman and you just admire her scantily clad. That actually excites you more about your wife. But it's not a woman degraded with 20 guys, you know, hammering on her like they're a beef tenderizer. That dehumanizes the woman, that dehumanizes the men, and every study shows it. And I'm not up here on some Puritan high horse telling you, you look at those naked pictures, you're going to go blind, and the devil's going to get your soul, boy. What I'm telling you is, it's declassified that this was all pushed and legalized to end the family, to end reproduction, and to end the enjoyment of sex. They started the whole sexual revolution to break up families, to make leftism look fun and cool, to get birth control in place, and then attack male and female, attack the two sexes, bring in all these new sexes, and finally have a sexless thing. Now, this is in the Department of Education documents from the 80s. It's in the documents from the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, from the UN, the Club of Rome. This is all public. How they'd add chemicals to the water to further blur the sexes. Forget transgenderism. You go to the mall, half the men and women, you can't tell which is a male, which is a female. They all look like blobs. I guess I kind of look like a blob, too, compared to what men looked like 50 years ago. Whether they were white or black, Hispanic, it didn't matter. Even wimpy little men were muscular and looked more manly than they do now. Because we're bombarded with chemicals and additives and GMOs. We're bombarded with estrogen mimickers. We are bombarded with sedentary lifestyles. We are bombarded. Like the guys in the movie WALL-E, you know, up there on their galactic cruise ship being taken care of. Now I'm going to get to this big compilation here, but please support the broadcast and understand that because of the earthquake, I'd already had this 50% off because of the hurricane. I don't want to be like Amazon and double prices of water filtration and storable food and other quality items. For preparedness with all these earth changes, I suggest folks get prepared. Old Mother Nature and God's telling you, you know, the times to get ready. We have the best storable foods. So we're keeping the sale. I said it was going to end. We're just keeping it, even though it's very hard to do this with our supplier because this really is 50% off. It makes a lot of the other folks mad. You got to have promo code READY. All the storable food is still 50% off. The water filters are 30% off. I am going to keep that as long as I can, but it's probably not going to be much longer. The 50% off on the fluoride-free mouthwash and toothpaste, the Super Blue for adults and children, that's all 50% off. That's going to have to end today. I've just been so busy, I haven't come up with new specials yet. Emrick's Essentials, that's going to end today for 50% off. Never done that before. Chocolate Caveman Strawberry. And, again, chocolate, that's 50%. We will be able to extend that a little bit longer, but the other stuff's got to end today. 50% off, again, the storable food. 30% off the Pro Pure King and more. InfoWarsLife.com, InfoWarsStore.com, or 888-253-3139. Okay, let's go to this powerful compilation of the 35-minute historic, brave, honorable, truthful speech by the president where he calls out the very foundation of what the UN is meant to promote, a worldwide robber baron, ultra-rich controlled system with 99.9% under it living under a quasi-communist hell. Here it is.
What a difference a constitutional American president makes at the United Nations.
His Excellency Donald Trump, President of the United States of America, and to invite him to address the Assembly.
Authority and authoritarian powers seek to collapse the values, the systems, and alliances that prevented conflict and tilted the world toward freedom since World War II. International criminal networks traffic drugs, weapons, people, force dislocation and mass migration, threaten our borders, and new forms of aggression exploit technology to menace our citizens. To put it simply, we meet at a time of both immense promise and great peril. It is entirely up to us whether we lift the world to new heights or let it fall into a valley of disrepair. We must begin with the wisdom of the past.
You know, Trump
Our
wrote
success
this.
depends on a coalition of strong and independent nations that embrace their sovereignty to promote security, prosperity, and peace for themselves and for the world. We do not expect diverse countries to share the same cultures, traditions, or even systems of government, but we do expect all nations to uphold these two core sovereign duties: to respect the interests of their own people and the rights of every other sovereign nation.
Nationalism.
The greatest in the United States Constitution is its first three beautiful words. They are, "We the people." Generations of Americans have sacrificed to maintain the promise of those words, the promise of our country and of our great history. In America, the people govern, the people rule, and the people are sovereign. I was elected not to take power, but to give power to the American people where it belongs. In foreign affairs, we are renewing this founding principle of sovereignty. Our government's first duty is to its people, to our citizens, to serve their needs, to ensure their safety, to preserve their rights.
This is the American
and
Revolution.
to defend their values.
And it's back.
As President of the United States, I will always put America first. Just like you, as the leaders of your countries, will always and should always put your countries first.
Because when you don't, you put the globalists first. They control the UN.
And just as the founders of this body intended, we must work together and confront together those who threaten us with chaos, turmoil, and terror. The scourge of our planet today is a small group of rogue regimes that violate every principle on which the United Nations is based. They respect neither their own citizens nor the sovereign rights of their countries. If the righteous many do not confront the wicked few, then evil will triumph. When decent people and nations become bystanders to history, the forces of destruction only gather power and strength.
That's Thomas Jefferson stuff.
No one has shown more contempt for other nations and for the well-being of their own people than the depraved regime in North Korea. It is responsible for the starvation deaths of millions of North Koreans and for the imprisonment, torture, killing, and oppression of countless more. We were all witness to the regime's deadly abuse when an innocent American college student, Otto Warmbier, was returned to America only to die a few days later. We saw it in the assassination of the dictator's brother using banned nerve agents in an international airport. We know it kidnapped a sweet 13-year-old Japanese girl from a beach in her own country to enslave her as a language tutor for North Korea's spies. If this is not twisted enough, now North Korea's reckless pursuit of nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles threatens the entire world with unthinkable loss of human life. It is an outrage that some nations would not only trade with such a regime, but would arm, supply, and financially support a country that imperils the world with nuclear conflict. No nation on earth has an interest in seeing this band of criminals arm itself with nuclear weapons and missiles. The United States has great strength and patience. But if it is forced to defend itself or its allies, we will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea. Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime. The United States is ready, willing, and able, but hopefully this will not be necessary. That's what the United Nations is all about. It is far past time for the nations of the world to confront another reckless regime, one that speaks openly of mass murder, vowing death to America, destruction to Israel, and ruin for many leaders and nations in this room. The Iranian government masks a corrupt dictatorship behind the false guise of a democracy. We cannot let a murderous regime continue these destabilizing activities while building dangerous missiles, and we cannot abide by an agreement if it provides cover for the eventual construction of a nuclear program. The entire world understands that the good people of Iran want change, and other than the vast military power of the United States, that Iran's people are what their leaders fear the most. This is what causes the regime to restrict internet access, tear down satellite dishes, shoot unarmed student protesters, and imprison political reformers. Oppressive regimes cannot endure forever, and the day will come when the people will face a choice. Will they continue down the path of poverty, bloodshed, and terror? Or will the Iranian people return to the nation's proud roots as a center of civilization, culture, and wealth, where their people can be happy and prosperous once again? The United States is a compassionate nation and has spent billions and billions of dollars in helping to support this effort. We seek an approach to refugee resettlement that is designed to help these horribly treated people and which enables their eventual return to their home countries to be part of the rebuilding process. For the cost of resettling one refugee in the United States, we can assist more than 10 in their home region. Out of the goodness of our hearts, we offer financial assistance to hosting countries in the region, and we support recent agreements of the G20 nations that will seek to host refugees as close to their home countries as possible. This is the safe, responsible, and humanitarian approach. We also thank the Secretary General for recognizing that the United Nations must reform if it is to be an effective partner in confronting threats to sovereignty, security, and prosperity. Too often, the focus of this organization has not been on results, but on bureaucracy and process. In some cases, states that seek to subvert this institution's noble aims have hijacked the very systems that are supposed to advance them. For example, it is a massive source of embarrassment to the United Nations that some governments with egregious human rights records sit on the UN Human Rights Council. The United States is one out of 193 countries in the United Nations, and yet we pay 22% of the entire budget and more. In fact, we pay far more than anybody realizes. The United States bears an unfair cost burden, but to be fair, if it could actually accomplish all of its stated goals, especially the goal of peace, this investment would easily be well worth it. The socialist dictatorship of Nicolas Maduro has inflicted terrible pain and suffering on the good people of that country. This corrupt regime destroyed a prosperous nation by imposing a failed ideology that has produced poverty and misery everywhere it has been tried. To make matters worse, Maduro has defied his own people, stealing power from their elected representatives to preserve his disastrous rule. The Venezuelan people are starving, and their country is collapsing. Their democratic institutions are being destroyed. This situation is completely unacceptable, and we cannot stand by and watch. As a responsible neighbor and friend, we and all others have a goal. That goal is to help them regain their freedom, recover their country, and restore their democracy. I would like to thank leaders in this room for condemning the regime and providing vital support to the Venezuelan people. The United States has taken important steps to hold the regime accountable. We are prepared to take further action if the government of Venezuela persists on its path to impose authoritarian rule on the Venezuelan people. We are fortunate to have incredibly strong and healthy trade relationships with many of the Latin American countries gathered here today. Our economic bond forms a critical foundation for advancing peace and prosperity for all of our people and all of our neighbors. I ask every country represented here today to be prepared to do more to address this very real crisis. We call for the full restoration of democracy and political freedoms in Venezuela. The problem in Venezuela is not that socialism has been poorly implemented, but that socialism has been faithfully implemented. The true question for the United Nations today, for people all over the world who hope for better lives for themselves and their children, is a basic one. Are we still patriots? Do we love our nations enough to protect their sovereignty and to take ownership of their futures? Do we revere them enough to defend their interests, preserve their cultures, and ensure a peaceful world for their citizens? One of the greatest American patriots, John Adams, wrote that the American Revolution was effected before the war commenced. The revolution was in the minds and hearts of the people. That was the moment when America awoke, when we looked around and understood that we were a nation. We realized who we were, what we valued, and what we would give our lives to defend. From its very first moments, the American story is the story of what is possible when people take ownership of their future. The United States of America has been among the greatest forces for good in the history of the world, and the greatest defenders of sovereignty, security, and prosperity for all. Now we are calling for a great reawakening of nations, for the revival of their spirits, their pride, their people, and their patriotism. History is asking us whether we are up to the task. Our answer will be a renewal of will, a rediscovery of resolve, and a rebirth of devotion we need to defeat the enemies of humanity and unlock the potential of life itself. So let this be our mission, and let this be our message to the world. We will fight together, sacrifice together, and stand together for peace, for freedom, for justice, for family, for humanity, and for the Almighty God who made us all. Thank you. God bless you. God bless the nations of the world, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to come back with 3 or 4 minutes of key analysis by John Bound, looking at how Obama responded after the speech and more. Make no mistake, this historic, brave speech by President Trump is a declaration of war against the robber baron class that created the UN, not as an instrument of global peace, but an instrument of global corporate colonialism 2.0. That's why this speech is so important, and that's why this compilation that you just saw, this boil down, is so key that everyone actually see for themselves so they understand why the corporate-owned media, owned by the globalists, hates Trump so much, because he's not out to get anybody. He's only out to stop the globalists from literally setting up a planetary dictatorship. We're going to come back and get to the final breakdown. That's the most important part of it all by John Bound. Just briefly, I've decided to extend the 50% off that we've never done until these hurricanes hit because of the Mexico earthquake and all the rest of it. People are really responding right now because they understand that there's a lot of earth changes, a lot of North Korea crisis, a lot of attempts to start race war, a time of crisis, a time of quickening, and it's just best to be prepared. 50% off at InfoWarsStore.com on all the high-quality storeable food with promo code READY. A lot of other specials in today. Thank you all for your support. But these are great deals, so we're supporting you as well. What is President Trump doing when he goes to the UN wearing his America lapel pin, his U.S. flag? What is he doing when he goes to the G20 and everybody else, including Putin, is wearing the G20 pin and Trump's not wearing it? He's symbolically saying, look, I represent the people of America, and I'm going to go for their best interest. And by the way, they've done major studies on this. When you build up a country, it builds up the countries around it. Under globalism, it's a giant sucking sound, as Ross Perot told you. They were making $45 an hour in Canada 7 years ago. As soon as they opened that border up with us, it went down from 45 to about 25. Now, we're at 25 right now. Mexico, average worker's about $1, factory worker. We're going to see it come down to $15 in the U.S. You don't want to do this. That happened. Henry Ford, for as bad as he was in some ways, raised his salary so much so that people could afford to buy the trucks and have an economy, and that was his main customer base to launch Ford Motor Co. was his employees. That's how you kickstart something. So here's Hillary saying that she's the Paul Revere. I guess for the globalist, you're the Paul Revere. Trump's the Paul Revere. I'm the Paul Revere. We're all the Paul Reveres saying we don't want to be under your worldwide tyranny. Here she is.
I am saying as clearly as I can, I feel like I'm a bit of a, Paula Revere. I'm trying to sound the alarm about this, is that the...
So we've always said we're the resistance, we're Paul Revere, we're the patriots. She's now stealing all of our iconography, all of our slogans, all of what we say we are, because we are that, we deliver. So she's getting desperate. Let's go back to Trump's epic, historic speech. Then we'll go to break and come back and get into the compilation of the late-night comics, reading off teleprompters, making fun of Trump about wiretapping. Boy, do they got egg on their face. They fell on their little noses. But back to the president.
Trump's words over a socialist, globalist former president.
The existing path to global integration requires a course correction. And as these real problems have been neglected, alternative visions of the world have pressed forward, both in the wealthiest countries and in the poorest. Religious fundamentalism, the politics of ethnicity or tribe or sect, aggressive nationalism, a crude populism, sometimes from the far left, but more often from the far right, which seeks to restore what they believe was a better, simpler age free of outside contamination. These are the policies that I've pursued here in the United States, and with clear results. A society that asks less of oligarchs than ordinary citizens will rot from within. That's why we've worked to reach trade agreements that raise labor standards and raise environmental standards, as we've done with the Trans-Pacific Partnership, so that the benefits are more broadly shared.
TPP. The United Nations is in a state of shock after having their spiral into decadence and globalist view blown to bits. But the left, still chewing on the Russia collusion fairy tale and crippled by overwhelming cognitive dissonance, saw something entirely different. NBC foreign correspondent Bill Neely tweeted, quote, missing from @real Donald Trump's speech at #UNGA, criticism of Russia, hardly mentioned, end quote. Wallace Ritchie tweeted, quote, at United Nations, Donald Trump laments destabilizing regimes, fails to mention his own or Russia, end quote. And Randy L. Klein tweets, when your United Nations speech is written by @Stephen Miller AL, an actual Nazi white supremacist, and read by a complete and total idiot. Klein is basing this Nazi white supremacist claim on Miller's false mentorship by Richard Spencer. But I guess everyone is a Nazi to the left, including conservative Jews. John Bound reporting for Infowars.com.
That's right. And Trump has a big hand in writing all his speeches, but Stephen Miller is a great patriot. And everybody understands the authoritarianism of the UN. They're the foreign power we're dealing with. Alex Jones here, back live. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got earthquake news. We've got more on Trump's historic UN speech. We've got more professors saying kill cops and being supported by their universities. We've got a lot of really important things to cover. Trump is also being blamed right now for the earthquake in Mexico City that's killed over 248 people, 20 of them at least school children. They're blaming climate change on humans first and then claiming that climate affects earthquakes. Though even mainline pro-anthropogenic global warming scientists don't believe that. So this is true voodoo. That's all coming up. And we also have the incredibly insane coloring books being given to children nationwide under federal schooling, teaching them that they're depressed and need to be put on serotonin reuptake inhibitors. This is big pharma raping your child's mind, turning them into victims and then actually victimizing them with these deadly chemicals, which they admit increase the onset of cancer and early death 33%. That's all coming up. But first, late-night comics like Stephen Colbert and Trevor Noah and John Oliver and all the usual suspects get the same talking points and then go out and parrot them. The same talking points come in to the show's writers. They then rewrite it, load it into a teleprompter, and then the host sits there at a desk or walks off onto the stage looking at teleprompters with cues for the in-studio audience to cheer. In many cases, they don't even have a studio audience. They just have a laugh track that they play in the background. Wouldn't it be weird if I played a laugh track whenever I said something funny and there weren't really people here? But again, it's all part of the synthetic total fraud. Now remember, they told us late-night comics, reading off their teleprompters, the prepared points, as actors, not even comedians, not even funny, they told us, posing as fake newsmen, that's what they all do, that Trump would never be elected. Then they told us that he'd never get the GDP up to 3.0, which we've now done. And they just go on and on and on. And they also told us Trump was insane, that no one was wiretapping him, because everybody knows there's no NSA or CIA. Everybody knows that, well, wait, they'd been in the news during the campaign and after, when he was president-elect, but not president yet, that they were spying on him. But it was done illegally, so as Trump said, I'm coming after you, they went, whoa, 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 we never said that. We're like, all you've done in the New York Times and CNN is say you spied on Clapper. I mean, Clapper said that his whole system was doing it, that they had the goods, and you had Obama saying they had the goods, and you had the New York Times saying they had the goods. And then suddenly Clapper and Obama and Hillary said, oh, we never spied on anybody during the campaign, as Trump turned it around and pointed out how illegal it was. So now we have their big epic fail here. And again, I'm just Alex Jones. There's no teleprompter here. I'm just laying out the facts. But you all remember them during the campaign and when he was president-elect from November 8th to January 20th for almost 3 months saying they had proof, they had wiretaps, they were tapping Manafort, they were tapping Trump Tower. It was in the front page of the New York Times over and over again. Then they turned it around and said we were insane, it never happened. That's how stupid they think you are. But here's the thing. We're going to go back to the memory machine, and we're going to show when they made fun of the president and yours truly and others and said over and over again it never happened. Now CNN, now the Associated Press, now they're all having to admit it because it's coming out in the intelligence committees that are having hearings, and they're going to the records. Ladies and gentlemen, we got records from law enforcement that showed Trump was being spied on, as well as myself and Michael Savage. We published that 4 months ago, and it got no coverage. It was Donald Trump's personal phone numbers. It was my personal phone numbers. It was a database from federal law enforcement that they leaked to the world so you'd know the truth. But now they've got epic egg on their face. Before we do that, though, because it's so delicious, here's the teleprompter reading. Usurper over here to look down his nose and talk down to all his flyover country folks and tell us that President Trump would never be president.
Do it. Do it. Look at me. Do it. I will personally write you a campaign check now on behalf of this country, which does not want you to be president, but which badly wants you to run.
So you speak for America. America doesn't want you. You're not going to win. But he said one thing that's true. You'll boost our ratings. All those programs had almost no viewers and were down by over 95% on the decade. They had a little bit of a dead cat bounce for a while as folks tuned in to see the train wreck, and their ratings went back up for a while. Nothing like they'd been, but now they've started their free fall yet again. So you are a joke, John Oliver, Trevor Noah, Colbert. You win awards at the Emmys for lying about myself and Trump. You win awards for being actors that read lies off teleprompters. So prepare yourselves, ladies and gentlemen, for the rich analysis and critiquing of these frauds who hope their audience doesn't remember them every night for months making fun of Trump, saying there is no spying. And it wasn't about Trump. The deep state doesn't want you to know you're being spied on illegally. They don't want you to have empathy for the president who went through it as well and who wants to reform it. They don't want that to happen, so they got to make fun of him and make fun of you and say, nobody's spying on you out of one side of their mouth, while out of the other side of their mouth, they're totally admitting they're doing it to you and treating you like a retarded animal. They hate you, the people writing the talking points. The Stephen Colbert just wants to jump around and act intellectual. Reportedly, the guy can hardly talk behind the scenes. He's like depressed and he's all moody. I've talked to folks that know him, and it's just totally whacked out. I mean, these are nobodies like John Kerry. Behind the scenes, they can hardly talk. And again, though, they confidently read off teleprompters what other men wrote. They read other men's lies and then force-feed it on you thinking you're an idiot. You talk about the scum of the earth with a big, raging you-know-what to screw you and your family over. And they're betting you never wake up, and they're betting you keep buying it. But the truth is their ratings are going down, down, down as the world wakes up. So here are the losers of the losers, wrong again.
Claims as Trump does is that the people around you have to go to increasingly ridiculous lengths to try to defend those claims. And this weekend we saw another example of that when White House counselor Kellyanne Conway was asked if she had any proof for Trump's outlandish claim that Obama wiretapped him during the campaign, and offered this bizarre answer.
How does he know that his phone was actually tapped?
Let me answer that globally. He's the president of the United States. He has information and intelligence that the rest of us do not.
You know what? Yeah, I'll agree with that. Trump has intelligence that I definitely do not.
Good pause.
I agree.
Again, the president is the president now, is able to see globally all the U.S. intelligence, and they can go in and know exactly what happened, but he can't release it because he'd be violating national security. The same thing Comey is set to get indicted for. So you think your audience is stupid, and you play along and act like that was dumb what Conway said. No, what she said's true. As soon as he actually got into office, he was able to find out about all of it. You think if I'm getting these documents, the president isn't getting them all? Let's go back to it.
I definitely do not. I agree. Listen, people, one more time. Trump's accusation is ridiculous and pathetic.
He's suggesting a U.S. president enlisted a foreign intelligence service to spy on a political adversary. That is an explosive charge.
This is a serious allegation.
Back it up. They've been all over the news for years, spying on the Senate, Armed Services, and Intelligence Committees. It's been all over the news. There's huge scandals in England about it, where they got caught spying on us. But they think you're illiterate politically. Continue.
Explosive charge.
This is a serious allegation. This might be the most serious allegation any president has made against a previous president.
But this is a very serious allegation for a sitting president to make about his predecessor. Some tweeted.
Notice it's all a total repeat on every channel because it's talking points written by John Podesta. Literally. Continue.
Some tweeted, terrible, just found out that Obama had my wires tapped in Trump Tower just before the victory. Nothing found. This is McCarthyism. And the other one, how low has President Obama gone to tap my phones during the very sacred election process? This is Nixon Watergate, bad or sick guy. He said Obama is either a bad or sick guy. Maybe he means him as compliments, like, yeah, man, he's bad. He's a bad guy.
The NSA's deputy director told the BBC it was arrant nonsense, revealing a complete lack of understanding in how the relationship works.
Yeah, Clapper and Brennan and all of them have been caught perjuring themselves to Congress and are funding Morgan Freeman doing video ads calling for war with Russia. You people are kooks. By the way, Max Boot that helped make up the WMD lie, he's the guy that wrote the script for Morgan Freeman. The WMD liars are now giving us the Russia lie. Continue.
And for their part, GCHQ called the accusations utterly ridiculous. And yet, rather than distancing himself from Spicer, Trump decided to back him up.
Are you asking, did I wiretap Donald Trump? Of course, I did it.
How low has President Obama gone to tap my phones?
Also funny.
During the very sacred election process. This is Nixon/Watergate.
Hello? Hey, Barack. Sorry, we have to investigate you on this wiretapping thing.
But you know I didn't do that.
I know, but we still have to investigate it. Otherwise, it'll look like I'm just mentally unstable.
The craziest thing about Trump calling for an investigation without any evidence, zero evidence. Trump has not produced a shred of evidence.
There is no evidence for Trump's claims.
The evidence did not come.
So where did Trump get his info? From the CIA? From the FBI?
Where are you getting this information?
From a very reputable source.
What, the FBI, the CIA?
InfoWars. It's a radio show hosted by Alex Jones. You know he's legit.
This is them falling on their disgusting little rat faces, proven to be lying scum, reading off talking points to deceive the public and derail the president who's fighting to turn the economy on and give all Americans their basic freedoms back. Shame on you, cowards, and history will know you were Benedict Arnolds. Imagine you're Big Pharma. You support eugenics. You support race studies. You support IBM. You finance Hitler. You support forced sterilization of millions of American school children in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and even 50s. You support injecting black people secretly by the hundreds of thousands with live syphilis so they can spread it in their communities. And that's just some of what's declassified. You take thousands of foster children, mainly white Appalachians, and you radiate them to death in secret radiation studies that were finally suspended in 1972. That's declassified, Department of Energy, 1987. Why am I mentioning all this? Because you can look it up for yourself. In the mid-'80s, they created the Vaccine Damage Fund so that they could secretly have secret courts that paid people out for vaccines, killing their kids, brain damaging them, you name it. And then they tell you on the news, safe and effective, there are no side effects. Folks, by law, the inserts in the package that the doctor gets says it can kill you, says it can brain damage you, and says quite commonly it will give you an autoimmune disorder. Guillain-Barré's, neurological disorders. Dr. Group's here with us right now, but I want to show you something shocking and then give him the floor to cover this. The New Freedom Initiative that Congress passed in 2005 had to then be passed by all 50 states. Most of them have done it. And the goal stated by Big Pharma, we had Ron Paul on at the time when he was a congressman, and others, said Big Pharma has written the guidelines, written the coloring books, written the materials, written the screening, and that they want by 2015 to have this in place nationwide, and soon after, and now we're here, it's 2017, a few years late, we want to drug half the kids. That was the goal of the New Freedom Initiative. You can search engine it. Well, Dr. Group points out the legislature of Texas was one of the last. They just passed it. Here's the coloring book the children are being given in kindergarten, elementary, and second grade. So kindergarten, first, and second grade. And it's so sick, it's a baby kangaroo. Chris's mommy took Chris to a special doctor. The doctor's a teddy bear. This is just like a child molester. I mean, you know, get in the car, kid. We got a teddy bear. You know, the doctor had something between his legs for the baby. I mean, this is a lollipop. This is so sick, folks. This is what, and they got your kid captured, coming in with guidelines by law, going to test them, and then going to try to force drug them. And California already passed the law to vaccinate your kid without your consent. So they're here. They're out of control. Just a few headlines, though, because they got to target kids now because adults realize this is bad. This is out of the Daily Mail. Warning for those on antidepressants. The commonly prescribed drug raises the risk of early death by 33%. And then it goes on. Google now is testing people for psychological stuff. And we have Professor, we'll just get rid of all the white people in the United States because they're not submitting to this. And, of course, she's a weird white lady. So, Dr. Group, let's go over the coloring book, the law. We'll do document cam shots. This is so mega massive. Folks need to know this isn't to screen somebody to see if they've got schizophrenia or whatever, or that's already going to happen. This is to get you into a system, ask you questions written by drug companies where the kids play along with it and believe that it's good, just like it tripled the amount of suicide after suicide education started in the 1990s. Kids weren't thinking about how to hang themselves with a shoelace. But it was epidemic and still is. Then they teach girls, don't cut yourself. Girls think, let me cut myself. Dr. Group, this is so blatantly sick and blatantly obvious and blatantly evil.
It's disease mongering, basically, is you convince a kid or you convince a parent that the children have a disease, or now you're even convincing the teachers in the schools to recognize kids that act up or kids that seem to be hyperactive. Alex, I mean, I can honestly say everybody that I talked to, if I was in school, I would have definitely been on some sort of medication by the time I was 5. There's a real covert agenda here with psychiatry. There's been a covert agenda ever since psychiatry was invented, and that was produced by the pharmaceutical companies with one thing in plan: to get every single person on pharmaceutical medications for diseases that they make up in rooms. Now, I'm not saying depression doesn't exist or anxiety doesn't exist or sadness.
But they even admit, they're just saying when a woman has had a baby, get her on drugs the rest of her life. Or have you been in a car wreck? You need drugs. They're saying you're never going to get out of it. Don't go march up a hill. Don't get sunshine. Don't go take on a new hobby. Doctors used to say, you're down, you got the blues, go outside.
Right, but we've gotten away from that because of so much money.
And we know if you don't get enough light in your eyes from the sunlight, Northern Europe put in artificial light, their suicide rate went back down to low.
Well, seasonal affective disorder was actually developed by the psychiatry industry. You know, years ago, exactly what you said. If you're not getting enough sunlight during the winter, they would say go outside, you know, eat healthy, do different things, go sit in a spa somewhere, some springs, drink some clean water, you know, have some fun.
That's what the Japanese, the Europeans, the African shaman would say, go to the hot springs, you know, you'll go on a nature walk if you're depressed. And it always worked.
So the psychiatry industry, there was one doctor a long time ago who came up with a genius report, and it said that mental disease is caused by a chemical imbalance. And they took that report and ran with it because now they had some evidence that the pharmaceutical companies would be able to create products for that. Thorazine was one of the first products. Of course, cocaine was used in Europe back in the day, too.
Sigmund Freud was completely addicted to it.
Freud, absolutely. He wrote about it and he endorsed it.
And let's go further, though. They said, Dr. Pepper, the doctor's going to pep you. It was the first drink with cocaine. Coke came along after, but it was invented right here in Texas, in Temple. My family was involved in it, strangely enough. But the point is but it was in a good way. Hey, give me some of that Dr. Pepper. And the doctor would pep you, and you needed the doctor 3 times a day.
Mental conditions, I mean, if you want to talk about torture, like if you look at torture in war, this is actual torture, because if you look at the history of psychiatry, lobotomies were performed, people were shocked, people were drowned till they couldn't breathe anymore and then tried to be revived.
And it's Joseph Mengele stuff. And the good news is we beat them then. We're going to beat them and their cult takeover with our children now, because this is child abuse. Plain and simple, all the gender reassignment for 3-year-olds. Camille Paglia said it too. It's pure child abuse. But let's be specific. It's true that they discovered by 1900 that most schizophrenia was chemical from people working in lead and heavy metal areas, and that they could detox. That was medical doctors discovered that. Psychiatry jumped on and said, see, it's all chemical, and started claiming everything was chemical. No, most schizophrenia they've proven is lead, mercury, arsenic, heavy metal contamination. You can try to detox if your brain isn't too far gone. So there's some truth to most what you'd call mental illness is somebody that's poisoned. They just took that basic truth and extended it.
That's exactly what happened. It is a chemical imbalance, but it's a chemical imbalance because you're taking in toxic chemicals. But they don't want to address the root cause of the problem. They just want to address the symptoms. As a, you know, you look at fluoride, you look at mercury, the Mad Hatter, which they were talking about, that caused mental illness.
They use mercury in the
you can have spinal disorders. The atlas can be off in your head area, and that can cause a reduction of blood flow to the brain, and it can cause mental disorders. They're literally... There's so much money, and there's absolutely no proof behind depression, anxiety, all of these mental disorders, shyness. I mean, there's close to 400 mental disorders listed in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual.
And they're always expanding it. They're always expanding it.
Now they're coming up with the DSM-5. You have addiction to the internet, addiction to this, social media addiction that can be treated, and none of it can be proven. If you have cancer, you can take a screen of your body and you can look at the screen and see the cancer. There's no urine test, there's no blood test, there's no testing that you can literally verify.
Well, the point is they admit they're a cult taking over under the new system where you want to be a victim. Everybody gets to have their designation now. Everybody is being inducted into this system. And those of us that don't want to do it, they're saying we're the bad guys. But here's the bottom line. They're targeting children. Go over the notes you wrote with this doctor. Go over the bill again that Texas passed. Other states already have this as well. This is in place in, what, 43 states last time I checked. So show folks the bill that passed that becomes law in just a few weeks. And then now this is the forced brainwashing of your children with coloring books. Not just to learn that they're evil because they're white, or not just to be brainwashed to have chips on their shoulders if they're not white. Now they're going to be psychologically tested and drugged using comic books, coloring books written by Big Pharma to induce them into being sad and learning how to basically have Munchausen's by proxy. They are medically abusing these children, trying to induct them into mental patient behavior as a way to believe they receive love because they do this. This is a psychological warfare tactic, so show folks the bill first.
I just want people to wake up to the reality of what's currently going on out there, because a lot of parents, I didn't even know about this, and a lot of parents don't know about this. This might be going on in your school, and your child for sure is being evaluated every single day for a possible...
Let's show them the bill first, because new viewers just tuned in. I want to go linear here.
This is in the state of Texas that just came out. As a matter of fact, it just came into effect September 17th.
There you go.
September 2017. Now, why do you... I always ask why. Why do you think that they're targeting age groups? This Chris Are You Sad is targeting young children. They are diagnosing young children with bipolar disease because of temper tantrums. They're being diagnosed and put on medications of bipolar.
And the new thing is screening for sexual reassignment as well. Once they can do the screening, they can start screening for whatever they want and then write it the way they want.
Which, by the way, was a diagnosis of mental illness, but they took that out, homosexuality, as a diagnosis of mental illness, which was in the original DSM. They took it out because they feel that it's no longer.
Well, that shows how it can be whatever the psychologists want. If they wanted to be bigoted, they could call it mental illness. Now they're saying if you don't teach your kid how to be a tranny, that's mental illness. No, that's child abuse, messing with the sex of a child. So they've just traded out one thing. It just shows it can be whatever they want. It's the new priesthood.
Listen to how sick this is. I listened to a 911 call the other day from a dad who was having troubles at work, was stressed out. He went to a psychiatrist. They put him on antidepressants. And you know this, Alex. This is why all the violent school shootings and everything happens. For some people, it can make you extremely violent. He calls into 911 and he says, I don't know what happened. I took my medications and I just killed my 2 daughters.
That's right.
I mean, how...
Yeah, can we pull that up? I forgot the name of it. I couldn't even hardly listen to it. It was Father calls 911. I just killed my 2 daughters. Let's find that. What was the name of the article?
I don't know. It was the 911 call that I was listening to.
So you heard it on the radio? Or
yeah,
I remember seeing that too.
Yeah, it's a 911 call.
911 call. Father talks about killing his 2 daughters. Continue.
But going back to the bill.
Go back.
Go back to the bill in Texas. So I always ask myself, why are they doing this? And is there anything we can do to prevent it? Obviously. But this bill states that, and it goes into effect this month, that it requires at least one mental health screening to be provided under the program using one or more validated standardized mental health screening tools, which are bogus to begin with, to each recipient who is at least 12 years of age but younger than 19 years of age. Why is it between 12 and 19? Ladies and gentlemen,
they know that is the most
go through when you're 12 to 19.
Puberty, and everybody has turbulence. Everybody's deciding who they are. Everyone is differentiating from their family. Everyone is designed to leave the hut, start your own hut. You're going through an existential crisis.
Exactly. Why are they doing all this? Well, obviously, it's for a lot of different reasons, Alex. Number one is they want people to be in the system. They want to have everybody to have a diagnosis of mental health.
It's a corporate takeover by Big Pharma through their control freak priest class that knows full well what they're doing.
All of these medications lead to multiple side effects. Over 780,000 adverse effects have been reported with psychotropic drugs. That's humongous. They know that they're going to put you on multiple other medications, but they also know that you're going to be in the system and that there are laws written that if you have mental illness, they can take you or your kids and you have zero rights at any time that they want to take you. It also prevents you from having a gun in most cases. So they're going to shut you down that way. And it's going to dumb you down and make you easily controllable. And I've even read some reports now about electromagnetic frequencies, and when you combine these psychotropic medications with different types of chemicals.
Well, that's why they're spraying aluminum in the atmosphere, not just weather control. They admit all that as well. But Dr. Green, let's get back into the coloring book. Yeah. Our audience knows this. What do they do to get the word out that the next big rollout phase is here? And by the way, we did find the 911 tape he's talking about. It's chilling. We're going to play it after the break just to illustrate what we're up against. Totally normal people get put on these drugs. They don't even tell you when you get them that's a 33% increase in early death, or that a massive increase in psychotic breaks, megalomania, mass murder. It says it on the insert because it is a hallucinogen system. But instead of seeing pink elephants and stuff, folks, you don't go into full hallucination. You go into a subconscious realm in between consciousness and unconsciousness. You go into a dream state. It's a highly suggestible mind control drugs. This is a fact. It says it on the inserts.
Yes, it does. So basically, just to go back to the coloring book, I'll just show you the last few pages, which is sickening. Chris's mommy took Chris to a special doctor. I can help you. Everything's going to be okay. This doctor asked Chris questions about how Chris felt and gave Chris some medicine.
Isn't that nice? That eats holes in their brain. Here's something way worse than cocaine and heroin. Totally deadly. Oh.
Now Chris takes medicine every day. And Chris goes to see a special person to play and talk. By the way, most sexual crimes are actually done with psychiatrists. Because of medication, they get to know the children. It is absolutely sick.
And they know they can control the whole deal.
I don't want to lump all the psychiatrists.
No, there are a lot of good people.
There are a lot of good.
And Carl Jung was a great guy. The point is, there's big pharma trying to find bad people.
Yeah.
Like I've been in a clinic you know, just to get a checkup or whatever, and you'll see the most gorgeous supermodel woman. I've seen this like twice. I go, who is that? And they go, oh, that's the drug rep. And you got the doctors eating out of their hands. And the word is they don't just give them little bonuses and stuff. The doctors that get the big bonuses, they get the sugar. So they're using sex. No, you didn't know about this? It's been in the news that the drug reps are basically prostitutes.
Absolutely. No, it's serious.
I mean, have you ever had them threaten, want to take care of you? A little?
No, because I don't deal with drugs.
No, but what I'm saying, though, I'm sure you've heard about this.
No,
the drug reps are known to like.
Heard about it. As a matter of fact, you can type in Google psychiatrists, worst doctors, psychiatrists, fraud. You can type psychiatrist fraud. They have the most cases of fraud.
Look. There are a lot of good doctors. It's that it's a drug-pushing industry.
It is.
And now look, where do drug dealers famously target people to get a new slave and to get a pusher? They target 12, 13, 14-year-old kids in the playground to be pushers. And that's all this is.
So
and
listen to this.
What do pedophiles use?
Be a special person to play and talk. And then after a while, Chris is sleeping better, eating again. Look at this, especially dessert.
Oh, you get
the sugar.
So there's a teddy bear doctor, and you get dessert when you get in the van. Just get in the big pharma van. There's teddy bears. There's clowns. There's cake. You're down. There's a whole circus down here. Just come in the sewer, and you'll float too. You're listening to the Alex Jones Show. I'm Alex Jones, your host, and I'm hopping mad. They have the New Freedom Initiative. It's bipartisan. They want to drug our children. They have liability protection for the vaccines. Now they want it for the antipsychotics, for the psychotropics. It's incredible. And it's on the insert that it causes psychotic breaks. It's on the insert that it makes you kill your family, that it takes away the impulse control that people normally would have. Like, you're going to have a great time on acid until you have a bad trip. It's in the same class. You just don't see funny colors and stuff, though. A lot of folks get the wrong balance of the medication. And, yeah, you can have some really crazy people. This stuff might actually help them. They've got studies that ecstasy is, helping people, MDMA or whatever it's called, in big studies for PTSD. But not when you're taking it every day, okay? And the point is, you put tens of millions of people on this, it can get explosive. So let's go over this. Chris, are you sad? Oh, look, Chris is sad, crying. Oh, the school bus. In the morning, Alex goes to school on the big yellow bus. Chris's mom brings Chris to daycare and then goes to work. Have a good day. I'll see you at home. Good mommy. She's not with her kids. Daddy, we're not saying moms are bad that do that. The point is that this is propaganda. Daddy picks up Chris at daycare. Yay.
Send the kid to daycare.
Daddy drives Chris home. I mean, after all that driving to daycare, I'd be depressed. One day, Mommy noticed that Chris looked sad and was not having a fun day. Not that he might be sick, not that he might have allergies, not that he might have a low blood sugar. No, we better take you to a teddy bear in the back of a truck. Mommy remembered that Chris' best friend, Pat, moved away. Oh, because the friend moved, you need drugs. Chris was sad. We've got something that will eat your brain and reduce your life expectancy by 33%. It's liberal, though. But this time, Chris was very sad for a long time. Oh, you lean over, and at the end, you get ice cream because you want the drugs. Chris cried a lot when Mommy asked, why, Chris? Said, I don't know. Chris acted grouchy most of the time. Oh, he was bad. It wasn't.
Grouchy is a symptom of,
It wasn't red dye. It wasn't too much TV. It wasn't enough time with parents. It wasn't just normal acting out. It needs discipline. You need hardcore psychotic drugs because they have antipsychotics. These make you psychotic. Chris didn't feel like eating even the dessert. Oh, Chris had trouble sleeping. Oh, my gosh. Mommy and Daddy sat down. It's not that Chris wasn't playing outside anymore and watching TV all day. No, it was that he needed hardcore drugs, eat holes in your brain. Everyone feels sad sometimes, but you've been very sad for a very long time. We want to help you feel happy again. Oh, how sick this is. There's a drug dealer, but he looks like a teddy bear. Now get in the back of the white truck. It's all right. So the opposite of don't get in the back of the truck when a guy offers you a teddy bear or a puppy or ice cream. Now go to this room with this man named Joseph Mengele. Chris's mommy took Chris to a special doctor who looked like a teddy bear. He said, I can help you. That's not creepy. The doctor asked Chris questions about how Chris felt and gave Chris some special medicine, and now he sees stars, and it's so fun as his brain dies. Ah, thank you, Mommy. Now Chris takes medicine every day and sees the happy colors. Chris isn't growing a lot and has big zits all over his body, and he started having convulsions last week, but now we just put him on extra drugs. And now, oh, Mommy likes him too. Mommy likes him. And Chris goes to see a special person to play and talk. Looks like a person out of The Shining. Oh. And then Chris thinks about slitting his wrist or hanging himself now, because now they've got the death education. After a while, Chris is sleeping better. Chris feels like eating again.
Drugged out.
Oh, he sleeps good, just like at the sanitarium. And he loves his ice cream. His tongue's hanging out.
His sugar.
Oh, he isn't getting grouchy all the time now. Chris likes to play again because Chris is dead. His soul's gone. Liberal, liberal. Salon says pedophilia is good. The deputy pope likes to traffic children. Hail Satan, take your pills. Chris was a sad little Joey until he...
Is Chris a boy or a girl?
It's a transgender, until he met a nice little man that had ice cream and puppies. As soon as he took the medicine, he saw funny colors. He couldn't walk very well anymore, but that was okay.
And Chris is constipated, and he's going to get diabetes and gain weight because of the medications.
And it says right here, 33% increase in death. But see, that's when you die.
And
the friendly teddy bear taught me how to have pustules all over my body and start withering away and giving me deadly drugs that say they can cause me to murder my mommy and daddy. But it's liberal, so it's okay.
And we're going to make money.
Sorry, Grip, I've been taking over. You go ahead now.
No, I mean, it's just a warning to everybody out there.
This is how to prime kids for pedophilia. It's like white trucks pull up. They got ice cream. They got puppies. They got teddy bears. Get in the back, kid. You see a clown down in a gutter. He wants to give you some drugs. Take him. You see Pennywise? He's actually a nice guy. That Alex Jones is a bad guy with that Dr. Group. You sad?
Oh, yeah,
Little Georgie, stick your hand down this drainage chute. You're going to like it when I tear it off at the elbow. Sorry, Group. Go ahead.
Anybody who's trying to help anybody is bad, Alex. I mean, that's our job. I mean, even like the John Oliver show and all that stuff, where they're saying all that stuff about our supplements. I want to see how many people John Oliver has helped. I want to see if John Oliver can even get into MIT, which they said I didn't even get.
John Oliver's such a coward. He'll have kids, shoot them up with vaccines, watch them have convulsions, and he'll celebrate it. I'm telling you, they're the type that would never even say they made a mistake because they're sorry. Go ahead.
Have you noticed how much Hollywood is discredited lately? I mean, seriously, does anybody watch the Emmys and the Oscars anymore? I mean, because of Netflix and because of all these independent YouTube documentaries and because of Hulu and because of all these other Amazon. I mean, not that I like Amazon at all.
You have done well, Lord Vader.
I mean, remember when we were growing up how everything revolved around Hollywood? And over the last, and this is just my observation of how we are making some progress, Alex, how we are improving. You know, people are waking up because of all the efforts that are happening. I mean, I've seen Hollywood just shoot themselves in the foot over and over.
Record low ratings. They're imploding. Have you seen them
imploding, man?
Have you seen the Morgan Freeman thing when he's like, we are at war with Russia. We need to attack Russia. It's like, what the? It's like they've gone crazy. Meanwhile, Russia's doing nothing to us. Nothing at all. I mean, nothing.
What is all this about? We've been attacked and we're at war. We're not at, we're at war with ourselves.
We're at war with psycho demons trying to drug our kids.
It's all about the children, and they know that. I mean, it's like, what is the next generation going to do? They're putting every effort right now into completely sterilizing. Psychiatry started as a eugenics program in Germany. The Nazis started.
That's right. I've got two different clips where I've got at the Texas Board of Psychiatry and other meetings where they go, we need to drug all the kids and give them vaccines and brain damage them for the greater good. And then this woman says, we'll just get rid of all the whites in the United States. That's a quote. You know why?
That's
because the whites, and it's not even true. It's highly educated people aren't taking it. Gee, because you think they might want to read a drug insert before you take it?
Gee, they were even trying to put vaccines in foods and genetically modify.
Oh, yeah, Bill Gates is coming out with that.
To where you could eat an apple and you get vaccinated. We have such a war going on in our own country right now. We have a war going on all over the world. But when you look at the toxicity, they just sprayed hundreds of tons of chemicals all over our heads in Houston.
But that's not going to make Chris sad.
Mosquitoes control.
And of course, that's going to make Chris sad. And when Chris gets more sad, Chris isn't going to try to clean up his environment. Chris is going to go deeper down the rabbit hole.
No, let's just give Chris more.
Take drugs that are so deadly, they fry your brain so bad that you're in frickin' la-la land.
What is the only thing that removes fluoride from the brain? Iodine. Now that's under attack.
We're going to talk about it all when we come back. Stay with us. Dr. Group's main office is based down in Houston, and they had water up 15 feet into the building. His house was flooded. We haven't even gotten into that. You had a big earthquake that's killed close to 300 people we know of in Japan yesterday, 7.1, Mexico. So now we've had another one hit Japan. So we've had one hit Mexico a week and a half ago that was an 8.1, another hit 7.1 in Mexico City, another one now just hit minutes ago. Japan earthquake, large 6.1 quake, strikes off coast near Fukushima. Earthquake rocks Japan and sparks tsunami fears. That's out of the Daily Express and also out of Japanese newspapers. And, of course, we have record solar flares right now ejecting from the sun. We call them sunspots. They look like spots when you're looking at them straight on, but they are mass coronal ejections that obviously come in with this ionization and manipulate the atmosphere, manipulate the Earth's crust, go into the Earth, bounce off the core of the Earth, come back out. Dr. Group, what do you think's going on right now with all these unprecedented Earth changes? Do you agree with me and a lot of the astrophysicists we've had on that it is the sun?
Definitely the sun is putting out solar flares. I mean, you also...
In fact, show that again. Let's, because it shows the sun when it's cool, like it's been for 11 years, and now it's at its maximum when it's really blowing up. You know, it's having huge thermonuclear explosions every 5 minutes. Look at the difference. What is that going to affect our weather?
It's the climate change agenda, Alex. I mean, look at the geoengineering. It's still, I did not believe it at first that geoengineering existed. It has been going on for a long time. You can pull up the patents online. Weather modification systems. Why do you think it is tied into not only the HAARP system, but also all of the cell phone towers? I mean, the cell phone towers can emit different megahertz frequencies and you can steer storms. There's been PhD scientists that have came out recently discussing Harvey, how it just stopped and went backwards. I mean, we're seeing global changes, earthquakes, volcanoes, solar flares, massive amounts of chemtrail spraying, chemical spraying in the air, tons with C-130s, Air Force.
More and more they're admitting it. So what's going on?
What is going on? I mean, are they trying to convince everybody and manipulate the weather? Are they doing these big training exercises? I mean, I did notice, and I've talked to people with Harvey, it almost seemed like a big training exercise. I know it's sick to say, listen, I was affected by Harvey. I lost my house. I have a whole new appreciation for life. It actually was a good thing for me. I became a better father.
You told me today, you said, sorry, I'm a little bit ragged.
Yeah, look.
You said you've been living out of your closet for 3 weeks.
Yeah, I've been living out of my closet. I
mean, out of your suitcase.
I appreciate everything so much more. I mean, and I didn't have it nearly as bad as everybody else in Houston had it.
Well, I saw the photos of your house. You had, like, water in your house.
But it's really been a life-changing experience for me because just a humbling experience. You can see these disasters on TV all the time, but until you go through it yourself, you don't realize how many ways it affects you, like not even having water to drink or like wading through the water with trash bags. I was literally wading through the water with trash bags on my back. And you know, it's like you're in this devastation zone. Of course, I'm not going to the psychiatrist and claiming I have post-traumatic stress.
We're going to get more into that in a moment. But getting back to this, Japan hit with a 6.1 tsunami warning right off the coast of Fukushima. I've looked at the Japanese tsunami maps and the earthquake maps. Why do they seem to build reactors all over the world on fault lines? Because if you look at global maps of the 446 power-producing reactors we know of, there's several hundred experimental, then a bunch of nuclear submarines as well. So let's say there's probably 800 nuclear reactors in the world. But most of the big ones, they build on fault lines like it's some type of joke.
I don't know why they do that. That's like that's just the worst engineering in the world because, first of all, just having nuclear energy is, I mean, I know it's beneficial in certain areas, but why haven't we implemented?
They can't ever do it right. They're constantly blowing up. You know the average age of our reactors is 37 years. They're supposed to be retired at 30. They don't even care anymore. They just run them until they blow up now.
Right. It's a good thing we have a big stock of X2 survival shield.
Yeah, I didn't plug any products last hour. We need to fund the operation. But explain the bad halogens go into the thyroid and other glands. When you don't have the good halogen, the thiodine, the government used to put it, a bad version of it, but a cheaper version, in the salt, and it boosted IQs massively. Oh, and by the way, before we get to that, what do you make of CNN? Let me show this to TV viewers. Coming out yesterday, fluoride exposure in utero, that means in the uterus, linked to lower IQs in kids, study says. We've always known that. One of the most early studied things is fluoride. They know what it does. The hydrofluorosilicic type, even a 0.5 increases massive reduction in IQ. Well, they're putting way more than that in the water we're drinking. It's crazy. Even the toothpaste says don't swallow it. Fluoride's poisonous. But they just keep it in our water. Group, why is CNN and others finally starting to admit, okay, serotonin reuptake inhibitors cause you to die 33% earlier. Okay, fluoride's brain damaging kids. Why are they like hedging their bet because they know we're going to win? They're just selling as much of it as they can and trying to push it on kids because they can't fight back while admitting, yeah, we know it's deadly. See, you were warned. What's going on here?
I think it's a great thing. I mean, if you start having CNN and the mainstream media coming out and exposing the things that we've been exposing for the last 20 years, that's obviously means that they're losing their ratings. People are starting to find out the truth, and they're being forced to start covering true subjects. I mean,
well, look right here. It says it is a neurotoxin. That's the same thing a cobra has when it bites you.
Yeah, so is bromine, and hopefully they'll come out and start talking about bromine and chlorine, the other toxic halogens that we're...
So explain to people why X2 is so special. They tested it. They had BuzzFeed test it in the big Democrat lab in California where if there's anything in California standards, you know, they sue you because they have laws out there. Well, they got pissed. They tested it all. It was all California standard, which sometimes we have to test stuff repeatedly because we send batches back because it isn't that standard. It costs us a lot of money. A lot of the cost of the product is it's so neurotically clean because we know what the California scam is. So we want to defeat them. And, I mean, how big was it when BuzzFeed tried that scam and got defeated?
It was great because it just goes to show you that they're getting defeated over and over and over and over again. And it all goes back to the people waking up and the people demanding the truth. And people are getting smarter. I mean, I know that we talk about all of these things that dumb people down. That's why.
Those are the victims. But for those of us that are aware, let's just face it, we're being boosted. It's crazy.
It's working both ways. I mean, you have a certain group of people. It's really this war on what's going to happen, and I think that we are moving forward in a positive direction every single day. I mean, I know that I get calls, you get calls.
Yeah, exactly. We're not saying all this to be negative. We're saying it so we believe when you get the facts, you're going to take the right action, and we've proven that.
No, it's awesome. I mean, it's awesome, and that's why Google's trying to censor this information. That's why, you know, all of the mainstream media is trying to censor it.
But we're winning.
It's backfiring. It's backfiring in their face.
Because even the people at CNN care about their kids. I mean, you know.
Yeah. I mean, you know, the information is going to get out there one way or another. And you try to censor and take things away from people, it just makes them more angry.
And let's explain. Calcium fluoride, you need a little bit of, it's good for you. This is hydrofluorosilicic acid. So when they say fluoride, that's not even true. Describe the molecule, how they weaponize it, how it's an adjuvant to everything else they do to us. They admit that in government documents. They do this on purpose. Explain what hydrofluorosilicic acid is and why it's not just if there's a radiation event to stop the radioactive iodine, you got to have good iodine in there or you absorb the bad iodine. Across the board, if you have the good iodine, this other garbage isn't going to get in there. Explain it to people.
Well, because iodine is a halogen, so is fluoride, chlorine, and bromine. The hydrofluorosilicic acid is a byproduct of the aluminum industry. And so this is a toxic compound which has an MSDS of a 4, which means
the most deadly.
Handle it in a full suit with a respirator.
Isn't 4 the most deadly?
Yes, it is. So what happens?
So it has the most deadly designation. I mean, only stuff like cyanide has that.
Yes, 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 it does. The thing is, the aluminum industry and the fertilizer industries, they would have to dispose of this, and the government is not going to allow you to dispose.
So it's a big joke. Dispose of it in our brains.
So they put it in your brains, you know, tracing fluoride.
Fries sperm, fries DNA.
Fries the thyroid gland, all of the reproductive organs. The thyroid causes all different types of the pineal gland, which is your, you know, spiritual connection. It calcifies the pineal gland. And the only way that I've found to really get fluoride out of the body is you have to have something that's going to go into those cells, bond to it.
And by the way, mainline scientists now agree the pineal is an electrochemical receiver. So they're trying to jam the antenna, the third eye.
Yes.
The ancients all knew it was there. They're trying to jam it. That's not New Age stuff. They are trying to jam your antenna to God.
Well, you can go on Google and you have pictures of individuals that have dissected the pineal gland. And
that's mainline science. It's totally calcified in Western countries.
Yes, and there's actually small crystals in the pineal gland, and they've taken like Buddhists and they've looked, and so there's actually a crystal receiver inside your pineal gland. Not the crystals from the fluoride. What happens with the fluoride is
they block
it crystallizes around your own crystal that you have inside your pineal gland. That's a proven fact. You can look it up in medical documentation.
I know, it's incredible. They know exactly what they're doing.
So they know that your main receiver, which is a crystal that's inside your pineal gland, that's your main connection to spirituality, and that's what keeps you calm, and that's what keeps you spiritual and loving everybody and praising everybody and a good person and not lying and stealing and cheating and everything like that. And the Russians and the Germans figured that out a long time ago in the concentration camps, so they gave you fluoride.
And that's in Shearer's Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. It's in Pulitzer Prize-winning books. They put fluoride in.
Everything is out in the open if you just take your time and do your research. They know that it's going to cause crystallization and calcification in your pineal gland, and they know it's going to dumb you down. They know it's going to reduce your IQ. That's why they want all these kids drinking the water with the fluoride in it. That's why they want the kids taking the psychotropic medications, which have fluoride compounds in them. They know that just dumbing the population down, you're easily controllable, and they can also make...
They're cutting us off from higher consciousness.
Cutting you off from higher consciousness.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Keeping you sick.
Escape from the prison planet. Here's the deal. I'm sitting here looking at Harvard, CNN, all of it, going, yeah, it causes massive brain damage, massive infertility, sperm immobility. They did monkey tests. It basically killed the monkeys. I mean, we're tough to be able to take all this crap. Humans are tough. I've seen the studies from veterinary colleges about 1.3 parts per million just of fluoride in water in cows and horses just devastates them. So many times now they're telling people that run big ranches, some areas they're getting municipal water when they're low, and they go, don't give municipal water to the horses or cows.
I was talking to somebody the other day, and he said, do you think that since you've been so clean for all these years and you've eaten organic food and you've avoided all these chemicals, that one day your sperm might be worth $1 million because no one's going to be able to get pregnant? And I was like, you know what? That actually is kind of a true statement. If you think about what's happening right now with sterility and the next generation of kids, and even with GMOs and MSG and all of these exciting...
It's children of men. They say that the average Western man has 90+% sperm immobility, and half of the men are infertile. That means in a lab, they can't get your sperm, and with microscopes, pick the ones that have good tails. Exactly. The sperms are retarded, folks. They're gone.
We are coming into an age that we are in right now where it's not the woman that can't get pregnant, although we do have many different reproductive issues going on with women right now.
Yeah, no, they're doing stuff that just kills the women with cancer or endometriosis or cyst in all the studies. But they're just killing women. They're targeting men's fertility.
They're wiping out the males. They're wiping out the males with the glyphosate, all the endocrine disrupting chemicals. They're killing the sperm. They're killing the reproductive tract in the males. And it's not going to be far off.
And by the way, I've interviewed all the chemists. The chemicals running off are hitting what? The male frogs, the male fish, the male nutria, the rats, whether it's mammals or fish, it's all targeting males.
Well, they just did a couple studies recently on fish, and they looked at their brains, and the fish have super high levels of not only all those endocrine disrupting chemicals, but guess what else they had? high levels of antidepressants. There's
which makes them all commit suicide. And by that, a big old bass will come right up and hit your line, even though he knows you're... And shrimp just go up to the birds now and get eaten.
They're just all committing suicide, exactly. I don't know what exactly it is that's causing a certain percentage. It's obviously a misbalance in the chemicals, but you literally have, like, you could never have thoughts of committing suicide, and all of a sudden you get on these medications, and you want to just jump off a building. I mean, that's kind of hard to comprehend.
And it says on the insert, well, it's megalomania because you'll do it to others, you'll do it yourself. I've talked to people that said, Alex, I didn't used to believe in you, successful, wealthy people. And they said, listen, I got on serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and I had like a 6-month-old baby. I wanted to throw him off a cliff. I didn't know why, and I wanted to kill my wife, and I wanted to, I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, I got off of it, and I feel fine. You know what it does. You've researched it. It says it puts you into a dream state, and sometimes you're going to have violent thoughts, and then there's no control.
There's no control. There's no control. There's been
because here's the deal. As a father, you'd automatically think, I better get away from this cliff with my baby. They could fall off. But on the drugs, you think, well, just go with that thought. Because, see, your brain scans all these different options. Your brain's always thinking of different angles, what could happen, what couldn't happen. And so just because you think, you know, I better stay over because I'm driving down a country road and I could front end one of these cars because there's only like a little yellow line right there. Well, if you're on a Prozac type drug, you go, you know what? I just want to go ahead and ram one of those cars. It takes compulsion. There's no controls, what they describe.
There's no control.
It's just compulsion of like, instead of thinking, oh, I better not have a front end with these cars, you know what? Screw it. Let's do it. Yeah. That's why the word is with women makes them very promiscuous on psychotropics because there's no, just let's go.
It's a serious situation, but the good news is there are options, and people that are searching for natural solutions out there for their, you know, we all go through times. I'm in stressful times right now, especially when you watch the mainstream media. You have a division right now between the left and the right.
But all it does is make me feel stronger, except I get tireder. I have all this energy fighting. I never get down anymore. I'm always focused, except then when I finally sit down at even 7, 8 at night, lights out.
Right? There's always a solution to every situation, and the solution...
Yeah, but coffee, nothing works. What do I do to stay up? Because now it's like lights out.
Well, that just means you need to detoxify your body more and clean your liver, keep your intestines clean. I mean, taking all the products, which I know that you do, and probably start meditating a little bit. I mean, that always helps too. I mean, that actually meditation now, there's more and more research coming out on it of the fact that it naturally increases your growth hormone.
Yeah, let's talk about that because what you're doing is learning to take control of your own brain. You know, my dad is an oral surgeon and dentist, and I mean, like 20 years ago, I was criticizing fluoride, and he heard it on the radio, and he came by the house, and he said, son, you'll die without fluoride. He goes, I got a degree in chemistry, too. And he goes, and I went and got articles and news, and about a year later, he saw some story a patient gave him out of Canada where there was a famous dentist that had gotten it approved there, and he believed it was calcium fluoride topical. When he found out it was hydrofluorosilicic acid and a bunch of other chemical waste dump, sometimes hundreds of chemicals from China, my dad goes, I got to apologize to you, son. That's crazy. And then another 10 years later, they came out, 6, 7 years ago, and the American Dental Association said children under 6 shouldn't brush with fluoride because it causes dental fluorosis and bone cancer. Now, people hear me say that, and they go, oh, that's just your opinion. Jones just said that. CNN came out and said massive brain damage in babies, massive brain damage in children. I mean, we don't just say this, okay? So again, though, my dad's a good guy. He didn't want to believe his industry was doing that.
I know.
But at least he later saw the facts and did. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just saying, you know, children are so much more susceptible. So that's another reason we didn't talk about why are they trying to get to children? Why are they trying to get children?
And why are blacks with fluoride 5 times more? Like, it's a death sentence to whites, but with blacks, for whatever reason, have a different physiology. And folks, they call that racist. No, it's not. On average, a different physiology. Higher testosterone, you need it. Why are blacks, in fact, Google it, much more affected by fluoride, Dr. Group?
Well, kids also, their cells are producing and they're growing. And when they're in that growing stage, if you can get these chemicals into them, it's really going to alter their cells.
Mutagenic.
It's going to be mutagenic and they're going to be disformed. in one way or another forever.
I know, but specifically get into that because we can go, I know you know all this stuff. You're a chemist. Why is fluoride and mercury, by the way, 3 to 5 times in the studies worse for blacks than Asians or whites?
I can't remember all those different studies as far as the blacks go for the as far as the fluoride and the mercury. I pretty much just say they're bad for everybody.
Well, of course they are.
I mean,
but I'm saying where's Black Lives Matter on fluoride for black people is like, I mean, you're talking deadly.
Right, and I'm sure that had to do with the eugenics because if you trace back, you know, a long time ago, they wanted to eliminate the handicap.
It's like Native Americans can't drink as much. It's a fact. It's just people are different in different ways.
It was classified in Germany as the original eugenics program, and it was designed to selectively choose the individuals that were wealthy, that were white, that were educated to have the babies and to eliminate everybody else that was a deterrent to society. And that way...
And we wonder why blood pressure, heart attacks in blacks is like way worse than other groups.
That's why the blacks, the handicapped, the mentally ill, anybody who had any problems...
Yeah, there it is, Centers for Disease Control, how it's way worse for blacks to have any fluoride. See right there?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
No, just it was like selective positioning and selective choice.
But I love black people. I love everybody. Like, I don't want Hispanics to be forcibly in Mexico given Gardasil when it says on the insert can sterilize you. But at the same time, I don't want the Hispanics brainwashed to hate me because I'm white. See what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying. We're all human. We're all brother and sister.
Exactly, but then I'm not going to be run over.
So... the way that they, there's a lot of sinister things that they're doing behind the scenes and things that are just coming out right now. And blacks
there it is, feds. Blacks suffer most from fluoride.
Oh, yeah, blacks and, with different vaccinations, with different chemicals, we all suffer differently just depending on our genetic code from how we were produced and what bloodline we originally came from a long time ago and how that's been manipulated over time and how we're grown up, what we're exposed to. Bruce Lipton, he's a PhD scientist from Stanford, basically said the environment in which we live determines our genetic pathway and that the nucleus is not the brain of the cell, which our medical profession has taught us for years and years and years. It's the cell membrane that's the brain of the cell. Because you can actually take the nucleus out of the cell and the cell still functions. It still goes to the bathroom. It still respirates. It still functions. Which is unbelievable. We would have, that's where our genetic code is.
What about the mitochondrial? Because women have a second set of DNA men don't have, and then you could argue is actually like the full species.
Yeah,
and then men are manifest as the competitive angle for females for procreation.
So what I've determined is that everything that we're taught in science about the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell, which produces energy, what we're not taught is what surrounds the mitochondria and what surrounds the cell. And that is the big diversion in the medical secret that they never want you to find out. Okay, what is the body? The body is nothing more than 90% water. Okay, if you focus all your effort on...
Isn't it a colony organism? Isn't the body really a colony organism?
The body is one colony organism of 100 trillion cells all functioning and working together.
And then it's got an electromagnetic radar that can read magnetic lines of the earth just like ducks and fish. Ours is, I've seen the studies, like hundreds of times more powerful than a geese's system. We've got like total radio transmitter. Our brain's like this huge pickup system, huge radio receiver.
So when we were studying the root cause of disease, Alex, we weren't looking at standard physiological cell membrane activity and what happens here with the gates and the channels, which the cell membrane is literally a semiconductor. What we were looking at was what are the components outside of the cell and what are the components inside of the cell? And since it was water, basically salt water, we started saying what is disrupting the cell. What is disrupting?
And we know it's fluoride and electrochemical. If you wanted to jack with salt water and electrochemical conductivity, you'd hit it with fluoride and electromagnetic radiation.
And you hit it with GMO particles, different types of bacterial organisms. Royal Rife, back in the 1920s and 30s, who had that light microscope, was able to identify organisms.
No, I agree. So, and then of course they classified it all. So let me ask you this question: what is the end game? Because I don't get into aliens and stuff because I can't prove it. The globalists act like they're an outside alien force, here poisoning us, and killing the earth as a reproductive mother. They claim they love the mother. They're the ones GMOing, killing, annihilating the whole deal. The liberals all say more nuclear reactors, it's good for the earth. They're like a sick death cult. Who are they? What is their end game?
That's $1 million question. I mean, I haven't really been focusing on their end game. What I've been focusing on...
Yeah, but who are they? What's their ideology?
Because the elite class of individuals that
they're elite,
started the Federal
they're elite a-holes?
Started the Federal Reserve, started the, worked with the pharmaceutical...
Yeah, but who goes, here, let's increase the fluoride in the black districts of town with the different valves they've got, because it already hurts them worse, so let's really hurt them, and then you put the black people down because you're putting brainwashing and chemical warfare in their water. It's super uncool. Then they brainwash the black folks to hate me like I'm their enemy. Like, how do you even deal with that? Like, they go train them with George Soros to hate me so they know I'll go after them while they're killing them.
Well, that's...
I mean, how do you even respond to something like that?
Well, it goes really, really deep, and you've covered it many times with the connections dating back.
And the argument is, Alex, you're not that smart. So you can grasp what the elite have done, but you can't figure it out. Why don't you just back off and let them run things and your family will be spared?
I mean, just do the research into the Club of Rome, the bloodlines of the Illuminati.
Well, how smart are these people, though? Because let me tell you something. I've been doing a lot of stuff. I can finally figure out what they're doing, and they're totally pissed at us. Who the hell has this knowledge and decides to go ahead with it? Because if you have the knowledge, you know how evil it is.
Well, they're seeing that the people are becoming, even though they're dumbing down everybody, they're also seeing that there's a select group of resistance that are getting the truth out. And that,
well, that's like insects. If you sit there by the third generation and poison them, the stronger the poison, the more the bugs come back stronger. So they know there's going to be a group that's immune to this.
There's a certain group of good, I mean, there's a lot of good people that are praying too every single day and that are meditating for good things to happen. So it's not 90% evil and 10% good. Right now,
I'm not trying to, I agree that we're turning the tide, but let's admit how bad the enemy is. Because so many folks are in denial. If they know how bad it is, then they'll really take action. Because I used to get told by globalists, Alex, you're just depressing people. They're a bunch of losers. Thank you for scaring folks for us. That's why we leave you alone. But the truth is, I knew folks weren't cowards. I knew they'd respond, and so we're winning. So I don't say all this to be negative. I say it so people know the stakes, Doc.
I know, and just like doctors telling people they have cancer. I mean, they're putting fear into them right away there. They're telling them the next
They've got these new blood tests where they know that it isn't really cancer, but then they get you in treatment.
But you have to know in order to come up with a solution.
They cut my grandmother's lung out, and she didn't even have cancer.
You have to know the damaging effects of fluoride so you can come up with a solution to it. You have to know how and why you get disease so you can come
let's do a plug.
To it.
Let's talk about X2, exclusively the cleanest iodine, deep source crystal. InfoWarsLife.com helps fund the operation. I'm extending 50% off on all the super high quality My Patriot supply. We don't raise the price and lower it. That's 50% off retail. It's almost a lost leader at that price. Promo code READY. Because of the Mexican earthquake and all the big earthquakes hitting Japan, I just want folks to get prepared. So Amazon doubles prices during crisis, during a new hurricane coming into the Gulf, devastating Dominican Republic. We are cutting prices during this. I'm going to keep this going for a few more days. InfoWarsLife.com, InfoWarsStore.com. Promo code READY for 50% off. A lot of other big specials are about to end. Just check them all out, InfoWarsStore.com. But specifically, and I'm going to be honest, I worked out really, really hard for about 4 or 5 years, lost about 30 pounds. But I got up to 280. I got down to about 250. And then I worked out really hard, got down to about 220. But it helped me with X2, Supermel. And I got kind of lazy. I don't even really work out now. Maybe elliptical a couple days a week, watching TV or something. I've really gotten bad because I want to work in the morning. I can't get away from work or time with my kids. So I'm getting a little bit of weight back. But, I mean, that's with almost no working out with the X2, with the Supermel, with Caveman and things. I mean, I was not losing the weight until I went on X2 4 years ago when you first developed it. Why did it do that to me?
Well, because once you start freeing up your endocrine system again and things start working, people don't know that iodine is a necessary element for every cell in the body. It's not just for your thyroid. And they know that. I mean, the Russian scientists and the German scientists knew that as well. So not only are you knocking out the receptors, also the iodine receptors in the body, you're talking about the reproductive tract especially, and all of the areas in the body when you look.
Oh yeah, the studies on fertility, IQ. I mean, this is why is iodine so critical?
Well, iodine is critical, number one, because it gets rid of, I wouldn't say that unless we have an overburden of bromine and chlorine and fluoride in our society. The only thing that's going to bond to that and get that out of the receptor sites, because the cells in your body, they don't know. The molecules of iodine, fluoride, chlorine, and bromine look so alike that the cell can't differentiate it. So it actually will take it in as bromine or take it in as chlorine or take it in as fluoride. How do you get that out? The only way you can do that is saturate with iodine, so the cell actually starts taking the iodine back in and pushing the chlorine and the bromine and the fluoride out. It's another big secret that the government doesn't want you to know about how effective iodine is, because what else? I don't know of anything else out there that's going to eliminate those three toxic halogens from the body that we're exposed to.
And let's expand on that. Some people say everything we do is according to whatever the FDA wants, but we do have this pretty strong for the dose in the bottle, and you believe it is safe. But if people are already toxic, if their thyroid's already in trouble from all the bad halogens, they should consult a physician first, because it's not a game. I mean, this is a main driver in the body for hormones. It's a precursor of everything. If you don't have iodine, you've got a problem.
And they knew that. I mean, all the studies that were done on iodine through Michigan and with the goiters of not having enough iodine, and then they decided to put iodine in salt as iodized salt, and they ended up taking that back out again. Because,
and just that crappy form boosted IQ 15 points.
Well, yes, and the pharmaceutical company.
I mean, that's the headline. The feds admit 15-point increase when they gave kids just a paltry. But explain the different iodines, because when they tested ours, they went, it wasn't sodium and it wasn't this type. It was actually pure iodine, which is weird. No, because no one else has it. Exactly. You want the pure iodine. Explain.
No one knows how to stabilize pure iodine. That's the thing.
But what was weird is they said it was like a weird thing. They go, we are top lab tested, and it wasn't sodium, and it wasn't this, and it wasn't that. It was actually just iodine, which no one ever had. Explain it to them.
Right, because iodine will evaporate extremely fast, and that's why it smokes. And you have the videos of it smoking. If you put it in the air, it disassociates and it goes up.
It looks like I Dream a Genie. It just comes out purple.
Right, so it's very hard to stabilize iodine. We worked years and years to stabilize it into action. You know,
and it is a Russian patent, so we're Russian agents.
We use a process called glyphospheric, which is glycerin wrapped around the molecule. It's a proprietary process. So you could have the iodine and it won't, using the glycerides, using this process, it actually wraps around the iodine and keeps it from dispersing into the air. And we use the 99.99% pure.
By the way, I wasn't joking. It is a Russian process. Right?
Not all of it is a Russian process.
But part of it was.
Not all of it is a Russian process. We did actually contact a consultant who was one of the top PhD scientists. He's living in the United States, but he is Russian, and he's
so we're bad.
Some of the technology
so we're bad
we used.
Because the Russians involved.
He's one of the leading scientists in the world, actually, when it comes to ultrasonic pulsations and stuff like that. So, yeah,
and that's how they put the gaseous form of the iodine into the.
What they do is they use potassium or sodium to bond to it. You have to protect it from dispersing. So they use potassium iodide is with a potassium molecule which is attached to the iodide, so it stays stable for long periods of time. And I can tell you this, that they didn't use the right type of testing methodology for that either, because we've had to actually work with laboratories to develop certain types of exclusive testing technology to be able to test for that, because their testing technology only tests to see if there's something attached to the iodine molecule, which would be a potassium iodide. And that's why they said, oh, we don't know what this is. It's just iodine. Yes, it's pure detoxified iodine, which is bonded and wrapped in a glycerin matrix. And that's why it's so effective as an I1 form, or a monatomic form of iodine that's going to go directly into your system, just like the Secret 12 is, where we have the bioavailable form.
By the way, I got to skip this break so we have more time, because this is so important. Look at how this works. I mean, it's so amazing where they're out there demonizing and attacking us, and they didn't even know that I was private labeling a lot of the stuff's original products for us, but your vegan safe Secret 12 methylcobalamin, medical grade level, pure, top rated, the very big firm they used listed it as the best vitamin B12 out there for $35 and then looked at ours for $17.76 and said, it is pure vitamin B12, but it's a ripoff at this price, even though they were selling it for like $15 more than we were, and it was yours marked up. I mean, how could they even train wreck like that?
Well, again, they didn't even test for the adenosyl cobalamin.
But they said, we've done all this test. Here's the best one, which was yours, which we were private labeling.
Right. And to this day, I still don't know how they're getting that because I launched an investigation into it. So I have no idea. There must be some individual somewhere that's purchasing it from our site, but we do not have any ties to them. We've tried to track it down. We can't figure out how.
So you don't know how this big law firm-owned testing place is selling your vitamin B12 that we private label as Secret 12. They say yours is the best. They didn't understand we were private labeling it. What idiots.
And then they just tested for the methylcobalamin in there, and they don't realize that the adenosyl cobalamin, the B12 in your body, breaks down into two cofactors, methylcobalamin and adenosyl cobalamin. Adenosyl cobalamin is extremely expensive, like extremely. And
that's 20% of it.
Making barely any profit on what you're selling that product for, which you don't make a lot of profit.
Yeah, folks don't know that.
It's all done to support the mission, and our main priority.
Well, we believe if we do this, God's going to reward us.
And that's it. I mean, and that is the truth. It's karma. I mean, the more good that you do, the more good that you're going to receive. And that's why the results speak for themselves. And that's why I don't want to put out some sort of a chemical bad product.
But again, our enemies took my vitamin B12, tested it, and said, yes, it's pure, California standard, almost impossible to do. And then they went, oh, but he overcharges. And then they're literally selling the stuff I private label from you for $15 more.
Yeah.
I mean, what is that? How could that happen?
I have no idea how that can happen. I mean, but again, they just look at what's happening.
No weapon formed against us.
They lie, and they come out and they try to discredit, and they come out and they try to find something that you're doing so they can, and then it just backfires right in their face.
Well, it's like Trump and the spying. They were in the news saying they were spying. Obama said, I've got the intelligence. He did it. I've given it to the news. He'll never get away with it. And then Trump goes, you know, it's illegal to do that. Plus, your intelligence is fake. And they went, we never did that. We never did that. We never did that. It's not thinking Trump would come after him. And then now it all comes out. How are they going to respond to that? All the shows, every show saying he's an idiot. He's a liar. Nobody spied on Manafort. Nobody spied on Trump. And everything Trump said, because once he got in, he's the president. He goes, give me a report on what happened. They go, sir, here's the report. He's got everything they did. And he goes, you guys are in a lot of trouble. And they go, no, we're not. And he says, because he's not going to release it because it's secret. And then notice Conway says, oh, he's the president. He's got the documentation. How did that blow up in their face?
Well, when you're not sure of the facts and you try to manipulate the public and you come up with a bunch of bogus stories about things, eventually we're smart enough now. That does not work anymore. We've seen exactly that strategy not work.
Exactly. Don't they get the public is addicted to digging into everything everybody says? No. They dig into everything I say, our listeners, and find out it's true, and they just love us more, because it's just really for us to tell the truth and just be totally honest. And so as it's like our mass is gaining as we tell the truth, they're waning as they lie. And so they triple down on bigger lies. It's not working.
And the strange thing is, though, I mean, I was in the gym the other day at the hotel that I'm staying at, and
Houston flooded.
And this guy cranks CNN in the gym, and he's sitting there with his weights, working out, and he's watching CNN, and they're talking about all these lies, and he's just sitting there, you know, shaking his head. Yes, I had to literally like get out of the gym. There are people that are too far gone. There's a you know, I wish everybody would wake up. I mean, I really do. And I think that that's happening. People are learning.
But I agree. I don't hate these people. I've gotten where I can't be around them. It's like they want us separate from them. Hey, don't worry. We want to be separate from you. You know, especially these white, trendy liberals that are like mentally retarded. I cannot handle them.
You know, that's where I just meditate, and I just wish the best for the whole world right now. I mean, and hope that people. It is working, though. I mean, you see all of your information that they've tried to discredit, all the products they've tried to discredit. We've proven. People have come to our support. People are out there spreading this information. People are telling the truth. The truth will set us free, and the truth is always the truth. I mean, when you continue to lie after lie after lie after lie. It might take, this is exactly what we're talking about with the psychiatry industry. This is how they produce things. They create a disease. They come up with a wonder drug. They lie about it, lie that it's going to work for years and years. And then it takes years, 10 years for all these side effects to come into place. And then, oh, okay, now.
And by the time they remove it, they got 50 more poisonous things out.
They remove it and they put the next wonder drug into the thing. But now times have changed. I mean, I believe that. I saw how people came together after Houston. I have a whole.
How did that blow up in their face, trying to cause a race war?
Because people realized what they were doing, and they realized that I'm your neighbor. You're my neighbor. I can help.
We're all in this together.
We're in it together, and we need to.
That's why I want everybody to be prosperous. As I've run into a lot of rich people, though, not the majority, but there's a minority of them, and they're mainly white people who just get off on other folks being poor, and that's sick. And that's how the globalists are.
When you help the poor, it actually helps you. I mean, I go release animals. Like I'll go to we have a lot of Vietnamese and Chinese grocery stores around Houston, and they love to eat turtles and frogs and all that in their living. I'll go, my wife usually goes every day or at least 2 or 3 times a week, and we buy those animals that are about to be killed and bought, and we'll go release them. It doesn't matter if you're doing good for animals or if you're doing good for people. It doesn't matter what your color is. It doesn't matter what your race is. I'll even do good for people that are, you know, love CNN, because what does that do? It makes things better for you, and it puts you in a position to where you're getting more of that good karma. And it works. I'm going to tell you, it definitely works. And just by meditating and by doing good.
And I overall agree with that. But what about folks that just think they magically say everything's positive? They don't fight corruption. They just say it's positive, and then they think that's going to make their life great. I find that's the worst scenario. You've got to fight the corruption, but also be positive at the same time.
No, I mean, I definitely agree with that, and getting the information and teaching people and helping people. You can help people in many, many different ways. I mean, you can just sit there and listen to somebody. They've done studies, because the average time a physician visit is 7 minutes. They've done studies where the physician just says, I'm not even going to try to diagnose, but I'm just going to listen to what this patient has to say for 20 minutes. And they just let that person talk, and there's already a healing response, already white blood cells being produced, because the individual is just able to voice their concern and listen. And just by listening to people, asking questions, already does people good.
That's right.
Smiling.
We're going to come back. We're going to come back. We've got, who's doing the 4th hour today? We've got Roger Stone coming up. He's, got to testify Monday in Congress in secret committee. But I wanted to play this video. BLM and Trump supporters shatter divided America narrative. Kellen McBreen wrote the story. I want to cover this with you when we come back and introduce Roger Stone as well. Hour number 4. We're only here because of you. You are the power. You are the guiding light that God's shining through. Thank you all for your support. Spread the links, Infowars.com/show, or the Facebook, Twitter, YouTube links right now, or local radio stations, because you taking action cannot be stopped. Hour number 4, straight ahead. Stay with us. Fight the power. Fight the power. But what is the power? Black folks and white folks fighting it and fighting the power. There's a video up on Infowars.com. It's an article on Newswars.com by Kellen McBreen. Coming up, we're going to have Roger Stone hosting this hour. Big breaking news. Manafort and his former business partners calling for basically a criminal investigation of Comey for criminal leaks and the wiretapping. Abso-frickin-lutely. Video, BLM and Trump supporters shatter divided America narrative. This happened when they showed up at the mother of all rallies Saturday. This has been out a few days, but I'm going to play it now. And they ended up actually calling Black Lives Matter up. Now, this was just real Black Lives Matter, not the actual Soros group, but Soros funds this. And when they saw the Trump love, a beautiful thing happened. Here's that video.
Your message. It's about freedom of speech. It's about celebration. So what we are going to do is something you're not used to, and we're going to give you 2 minutes of our platform to put your message out. Now, whether they disagree or agree with your message is irrelevant. It's the fact that you have the right to have the message. I am an American. And the beauty of America America is that when you see something broke in your country, you can mobilize to fix it.
This really scares the globalists.
That's why there's a Black Lives Matter, because you can watch a black man die and be choked to death on television and nothing happens.
Yeah, then 50 times blacks killing their own people. We're just saying the media is hyping the other thing. We're not agreeing with it. It's just they're doing it to cause a riot.
We are not anti-cop.
But see, the whole process unfolds and they all come together.
Cop. We say if a cop is bad,
All funded by Soros.
Yeah, if he's a bad cop, get rid of him. We're not, of course. I'm not worshiping the police. I just don't want to scapegoat them.
We don't want bad anything.
Yeah, we're not going to just scapegoat the police, like just kill cops, that'll fix it.
We don't want anything that's yours. We want our God-given right to freedom, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
But see, that's not a real Black Lives Matter Soros funding group. That's just folks that showed up with the shirts who mean well. And it shows how you can reach out to them.
You're right. You are so right. All lives matter,
But see, the mainline Black Lives Matter group says no, not all lives don't matter. They even got Bernie Sanders' face for that.
Life is lost. We get no justice. That's why we say Black Lives Matter. That's why we say Black Lives Matter. And we really want to make America great. We do it together.
But see, that's a grassroots guy. He just sees the media showing blacks getting killed and magnifying it. And then he thinks that that's the big event. He doesn't get it's a manipulation. We're not defending some crazy cop shooting somebody.
I restored my faith in some of those people because when I spoke truths, they agreed. I feel like we made progress. I feel like two sides that never listened to each other actually made progress today.
But you know the globalists hate
on
this.
that stage?
Oh,
No,
they hate it.
I expected to come
They
down
want division.
Just like our Tea Party rallies that Roger had was like 60% minority. The media, I was there. Mother Jones was there, and they wrote about it. They were scared. They were like, what the? Because they're all white, weird, racist old people. They saw that, and they were really freaked out.
Made some substantial steps without either side yielding.
They couldn't stand it.
Yeah, I hope that they understand that one of the leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement is a proud American.
All right, the full video is on Infowars.com. Kellen McBreen, BLM and Trump supporters shatter divided America. I'm going to tweet that out at Real Alex Jones. Dr. Group, thank you for the great work you're doing. I'm going to come back and introduce Roger Stone. Let's talk when I'm off in about 10 minutes. Stay with us. This is the InfoWar. This is the mass awakening. This is the tip of the spear. This is victory. And remember, if you're watching or listening to this transmission, you are the resistance. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Roger Stone's about to take over this hour. Next week, he's testifying in closed session to the congressional committee. Even his wife can't go in. So we're going to have reporters there to cover it all, but they want to have him in secret testimony. What they've done with other people that have testified is not let them have a record of it, then make up what they said later. So look for the committee, for Congressman Schiff to say, Roger Stone murdered a child in front of us. He said he loves Stalin. He's married to Putin. I mean, that's what they do. So Roger Stone's here. Paul Manafort, the word is about to be indicted. He's come out and said, listen, criminal investigation of the leaks, which are now confirmed, massive eggy wig all over the face of late-night TV, comedy shows, the Democrats. They're still reeling from that. What is the state of the war, Roger Stone?
You know, it just seems to me, Alex, that the deep state has now been unmasked themselves. Despite their vehement denials of wiretapping, their wiretapping came to the fore in the Manafort case, proving thus in one kind of sweeping move what many in the media had overlooked. The fact, first of all, that Mr. Clapper had testified under oath in front of the Congress regarding the wiretaps in an exchange with Senator Feinstein. He admitted that the widespread parameters focused at Trump Tower. And then when pressed for details, he kept saying, it's just too sensitive. I can't discuss it. It's too sensitive. This also reflects the incredible report back in March when Circa News reported that the FISA court had admonished the Obama NSA for the surveillance of at least 30,000 Americans, saying that this was, if I quote the court, there was an institutional lack of candor, that it raised very serious Fourth Amendment issues. The three networks, of course, ignored all of this. 1 out of every 20 searches by the NSA and their running dog lackeys at the Central Intelligence Agency and the FBI was essentially for political purposes. So
this is massive scandal, 1,000 times bigger than Watergate. I mean, 10,000 times. This is gargantuan. And we also have Comey and the Justice Department lying under oath months ago when he was still director, saying no one has spied on Trump, either through FISA or through the Justice Department, or on any of his surrogates, or on Trump Tower, now a proven fraud. Let's play that clip. Then I asked Stone, why is it coming out now? Here it is.
Director Comey, was the president's statement that Obama had his wires tapped in Trump Tower a true statement?
With respect to the president's tweets about alleged wiretapping directed at him by the prior administration, I have no information that supports those tweets, and we have looked carefully inside the FBI. The Department of Justice has asked me to share with you that the answer is the same for the Department of Justice and all its components. The department has no information that supports those tweets.
Okay. It goes on and on, but let's just not go to the rest. No components anywhere, anybody, when they are openly doing it and know they are, and had just bragged in the news, we got Trump, we've been spying on him. I mean, this is, talk about a jackknife. I mean, this is an explosion of buffoonery.
Well, Alex, I think notice that he chooses his words very carefully. First of all, I think we've now established without any question that FISA court warrants were being used to surveil Trump associates, including Manafort, Carter Page, and presumably yours truly. I do think that Judge Andrew Napolitano was correct when he said that the M1 was actually conducting the surveillance on Trump himself. This gave their colleagues in the deep state deniability. Notice last week when Sessions said that there was no proof of the spying, he again said there is nothing in our possession that would indicate that this happened. Now, it is false that Judge Napolitano was suspended by Fox. What happened was a dirty trick. Somebody told the LA Times that after hours on the East, so there was no way to deny it or confirm it. The LA Times ran with it as a story. It got picked up everywhere. In fact, Judge Napolitano was never suspended. He was off the air for 6 days on a planned vacation. Ironic that MSNBC and CNN came back and printed a correction, said he was not suspended. Fox never did so. However, the judge is borne out on May 8th, 2017, when Mr. Clapper, the director of intelligence under Obama, goes to the U.S. Senate. Let me read this exchange. Senator Feinstein. The Guardian has reported that Britain's intelligence service first became aware in late 2015 of suspicious interactions between Trump advisors and Russian agents, and this information was passed on to U.S. intelligence. Over the spring of 2016, multiple European allies passed on additional information to the United States about contacts between Trump, the Trump campaign, and Russians. Is this accurate? This is Yates, the former director. I can't answer that, she says. Feinstein, General Clapper, is that accurate? Yes, it is, and also quite sensitive. Okay, let me ask you about this. The specifics are quite sensitive. I can say no more. There you have it, Alex. Busted. Busted. You take the Circa story by Sarah Carter, which is one of the most extraordinary pieces of journalism that I've seen in the 40 years I've been in politics. Stone cold proof that Rogers, Brennan, Clapper, Rice are spying on thousands of Americans, as many as 30,000, according to the court. And then Mr. Comey is perjuring himself to cover it up.
We'll put the headline back on screen because there it is. It's now admitted they illegally spied on people for political control. Declassified memos show FBI legally shared spy data on Americans with private parties. So they're caught red-handed. So I'll ask you the question, and then you're taking over. We'll skip this break so you have more time. Why is it coming out now? Because they know, like Conway said months ago, the president's the president. He's in there. He has all this. He knows it's classified, so he's not releasing it, but he knows they're lying. So how does this then go public, and what has smoked them out to now admit they're liars?
What's ironic here is that this was kind of a dead and buried issue. The fact that there was very little media coverage of the circus story means that the deep state could heave a deep sigh and relax. Dr. Jerry Corsi, on behalf of InfoWars, was really ahead of this curve, writing detailed stories about metadata surveillance, including surveillance of Trump that goes all the way back into the 80s
including
and 90s.
the classified source documents.
Exactly. So Dr. Corsi first picks up the deep state spying on Trump, which has, I think, waxed and waned over the years. He's been on their radar, obviously, for a very long time. Now, Alex, the other thing that is ironic is that it's the Manafort case that brings this all to the fore. In other words, the mainstream media backed into this. When it leaked that Manafort was put back under surveillance by Comey. So recognize what they did here. They have Manafort under surveillance. It bears no fruit. They turn off the tap because there's no evidence of a crime. Manafort goes to work for President Trump, successfully runs his operation at the convention to seize the nomination and to avoid a theft by the Republican establishment, a 1952-style hijacking. And then they put him back under scrutiny during the transition, during the inauguration, at a time that he's in frequent contact with the president-elect and with myself and others.
That's the NSA being used to try to steal elections in America. Unprecedented. Roger, you take over. Incredible.
Thank you, Alex. First of all, I do want to ask you to remember that we here at InfoWars don't have a George Soros or a Ford Foundation or a Rockefeller Foundation writing big checks to keep us alive. Alex Jones has an extraordinarily ambitious expansion planned. In Austin, you can hear them working in the next studio to build a super studio that is more sophisticated and bigger than anything we have already. And I must tell you, we have a great, hidden bunker there in Texas and a lot of talented people. But this studio will be something like anything you have ever seen. But this costs money. And we can't count on big corporate sponsors from the multinational corporations or hidden billionaires like the Clintons and the Media Matters crowd. So we ask you to the Infowars.com store. Now, among the things that you can get is the iconic Bill Clinton rape T-shirt. Now, this is a piece of history. If you read my book, The Making of the President 2016, which you can also get at the Infowars.com store, you will learn how Alex Jones put this item into the stratosphere, into the political lexicon. Believe me, folks, this T-shirt will end up in the Smithsonian. There are a limited number of these. This is a limited edition. When these go, that's it. We don't intend to print any more. Yes, you can get them at Stone Cold Truth at the store there as well, but that's all there is. Alex and I essentially divided the stock. So this is something you're going to want to have, something you're going to want to cherish, because it was a way to break through the mainstream media blockade, the roadblock, as it were, the blackout on Bill Clinton's real past. They kept calling him, they said he was guilty of indiscretions or infidelities when the issue was violence against women, rape. So I urge you to go to the site and get your Clinton rape T-shirt now. Also there, multiple other specials. I myself am a giant fan of Brain Force. This stuff is really great for mental clarity and mental energy. When you're working, in some cases, 18-hour days for the cause of freedom, this is an indispensable product. I know that Rick Derringer, the rocker, tells me that he lives by it. I know that Judge Napolitano is a fan, and many people I know use this as a secret weapon. So, again, I commend to you Brain Force. Paul Manafort has dominated the news, and I think it's important to put his involvement with Donald Trump into some prospect. Now, admittedly, Manafort was an usher in my wedding, someone I have known since my college Republicans and young Republican days. Manafort and I both hail from Connecticut. Connecticut is one of the last states in the nation that nominates candidates for governor and senator and all statewide offices in a state convention rather than a primary. A primary can be secondary, but can only be held after nominees are selected in a convention. Manafort came up through the college Republicans, the young Republicans, which are governed by convention's rules, Robert's Rules of Order, and whose structure is identical in terms of the way those organizations operate to the convention of the Republican National Committee. So if you know how to run a young Republican National Convention, you know how to run a Republican National Convention because the structure, Rules Committee, Credentials Committee, Platform Committee, and so on, are identical. The Republican National Convention is governed not by federal law, not by state law, but by its own rules. In 1952, the Republican nomination for president was hijacked. Senator Robert Taft, a conservative favorite, got to Chicago with enough votes to be nominated, but the skillful convention politics of Dwight Eisenhower stole that nomination when Taft delegates were unseated in Texas and Louisiana, replaced by Eisenhower supporters, and the rest is history. Paul Manafort joined the Trump campaign at a time that Donald Trump had lost Colorado, lost Wisconsin first, then lost Colorado, lost North Dakota, and delegates were stolen from him in Louisiana. Manafort brought a convention expertise that I think is unappreciated. There was, in fact, a rebellion within the Rules and the Rules Committee, which Manafort crushed. Now, it's important to recognize that the Rules and Credentials Committees are made up of 2 members from each state, and prior to Manafort's involvement, no one in the Trump campaign was paying attention to the fact that though Trump might sweep a delegation convention, the 2 appointees to the Rules and Credentials and Platform Committee could be hostile to the candidacy of Donald Trump. Manafort, in my view, not only put on a terrific convention, the highlights of which include the Rudy Giuliani's fiery speech, excellent speeches by the Trump children, and there's no question that Trump aced his acceptance speech, and Manafort left the campaign the legacy of putting the candidate up on teleprompter, letting him riff off of it, but essentially keeping some form to his general election messaging. And this is essentially the grand strategy that Steve Bannon oversaw and pushed. And Manafort was right. Trump was quite effective using this medium. Not like Barack Obama, where he has to read everything off a teleprompter, and God knows Trump can and does riff. Now, Manafort has therefore became a target for the Clinton people. The Clinton people feared Manafort. They knew him well because Manafort had actually done some business with the Podesta brothers. And they had worked together in the Ukraine for a political party and a candidate in a Democratic political election recognized by the United States State Department and a party recognized by the United States State Department for which Manafort was paid. That's not the same as lobbying. It is political consulting. But the ledger that the New York Times would write so much about that showed Manafort taking a payment of $12 million turns out to be a forgery. As Lee Stranahan revealed here on InfoWars, the prosecutor in that matter now says the ledger tying Manafort to improper payments is a fraud and that there are no pending charges or case against Manafort. The New York Times, of course, has not put this on page 1. Manafort would ultimately resign from the Trump campaign because he knew that his business activities were becoming a distraction. He left reluctantly, but I think loyally, but continued to give advice to President Trump and to members of the Trump campaign. And we continued to confer. It is now clear that Manafort was being surveilled regarding his relationships in the Ukraine, and that surveillance yielded no improper activity. In fact, it was ended. Manafort's surveillance is turned back on immediately after Donald Trump is elected president. This is to spy on Manafort in an effort to find something that could be leveraged against the president. And in fact, we now know that Manafort is surveilled during the transition, during the inauguration, in conversations with President Trump, myself, Jared Kushner, and others. This is a political fishing expedition. I'd also point out to you that it is in this period that Ms. Rice decides that she is going to use the surveillance information to unmask Trump associates. And the reason she tells the Congress for her action is that she learned that President-elect Trump was opening a back channel to the Russians, which he has the authority to do, which is entirely his right and his prerogative as a president-elect, and that he did not yet begin the dialogue. He merely went to a third party or met with a third party to discuss it. So in other words, she is interfering with the president's foreign policy prerogatives, but does not make her use of the data not a crime, although interestingly enough, Trey Gowdy and some other Republicans seem to indicate that they thought this somehow absolved her. I don't see that myself. So it is, at this point, I think the question is, why, in the face of all of this, are they going after Paul Manafort? When they kicked in the door of his apartment at 5 a.m. in Alexandria, Virginia, and then jimmied a lock to get into the bedroom, they were lucky he wasn't carrying a firearm because they had not identified themselves. They then ransacked his entire apartment, were there for 5 hours, and they photographed all of his custom-made, high-end Italian suits. Perhaps they're going to bring a charge against him of taking a tax deduction for these fine garments, but I seriously doubt that he would do so. Those in the business know that many years ago, Ozzie Nelson, the band leader, tried to argue that because he appeared on television, his suits were a business expense, and this was disallowed. So, Alex Jones, don't try that one, although I don't think you would. I have been told by my accountant that there's no chance you can write off the suits. How unfortunate. But they took away 2 different binders of documents, which Manafort had already turned over. What's going on here? Let's be as clear as we can. Mueller seeks to find some charge against Manafort that does not relate in any way to Russia. Money laundering, tax evasion, failure to file with FARA, and then go to Manafort and say, look, Manafort, unless you want to go to jail for the rest of your life, or for a long period of time at least, you'll admit that you were colluding with the Russians, and you'll say that Donald Trump knew everything. In other words, they want him to bear false witness against our president. They want him to lie. Now, this is a man who managed my campaign for Young Republican National Chairman. This is someone I have known my entire adult life. When he was working for Ford, I was working for Ronald Reagan. He's a tough nut. He is a tough customer. He's an Italian-American, and he's very stubborn. He will not lie. He will not roll on our president. He will not bear false witness and say whatever the government wants him to say. I've known Manafort my lifetime, and I think he's done nothing wrong, but they are trying to destroy him financially, as they have me. And when I come back, we'll talk about the House Intelligence Committee. In the meantime, Roger Stone, sitting in for Alex Jones. God bless you, and hit the Infowars.com store because we need your support. Welcome back. I'm Roger Stone, and you're here on the Alex Jones Show. This in from the White House. As we reported here at Infowars, General John Kelly continues to try to crack down on any communications with the president that doesn't go through him. He has successfully managed to squeeze out the president's longtime bodyguard and confidant, Keith Schiller, We have learned that Schiller's showdown with General Kelly revolves specifically around a link to a news story that Schiller showed the president, which evidently General Kelly did not want the president to see. It is extraordinary that Keith Schiller is leaving. It is even more extraordinary that the president is letting him go. But our sources say General Kelly gave a him or me ultimatum to the president. Schiller is nothing if not the loyal soldier. He's not talking. He is just telling people he's returning to that he is going to Boca Raton, Florida, where he will open a new security firm. But friends tell us that he is unhappy with this term of events, and of course concerned about his oldest friend and leader, the president. Now, I have heard that there is an upside to General Kelly's activities. Among those who are now being squeezed out and whose contact with the president has been entirely cut off is Omarosa of Apprentice fame. Now, Omarosa has been the subject of a number of reports here before because when she joined the White House staff, she quickly emerged as an advocate for the government of Jovenel Moïse, or Mos, I guess it's Moïse, who is a puppet for the very same people who worked with Bill Clinton and his wife to essentially steal all of the earthquake aid, billions of dollars, leave that country not only plagued with malaria, but without housing, schools, roads, bridges, hospitals, literally the financial rape of Haiti. Incredibly, Omarosa persuaded President Trump to send a delegation, not from our State Department, but from the White House, unheard of from a diplomatic point of view, to the inauguration of this puppet government, who had only been elected after 2 elections, both of them marked with widespread fraud. The fraud in the first one was so public that the election was thrown out. The fraud in the second one was a little better concealed, but not really. And the theft of Haiti, the rape of Haiti, continues. This is about extracting the minerals, the oil, the gas, the other trace minerals of which the country is rich. When the federal government response to the earthquake was led by Hillary Clinton, the UN response was grabbed by Bill Clinton. Consequently, the contracts for housing and other enormous big-ticket items went to Clinton cronies who in many cases had never built a house in their life and still haven't. So why was it that Omarosa, a staunch Trump supporter, would be fronting for the left-wing puppet corrupt government of the Clintons and their allies? Well, the answer is a Democratic consultant named Ron Daniels. Daniels, who is a charming political power broker, hosted Omarosa in Haiti in 2007. She also would travel there with him on other occasions. The government that she has endorsed is already under investigation for narco trafficking. And the president campaigned openly with Guy Philippe, who the DEA has under indictment and who says is perhaps the greatest drug trafficker in Haiti. This is who Omarosa helped empower. So in the case here of General Kelly squeezing out Omarosa, while it does not make up for the mistake of purging Keith Schiller, it is certainly good news for those who recognize that the president has not stepped up on his commitment to the people of Haiti. The president was very critical of the Clintons' activities there and said he would stand up for the Haitian people. He's very popular among Haitian Americans. Indeed, he's popular in Haiti overall. But he needs to keep his commitments, and when we help that nation, the money should not go in the pockets of oligarchs and narco traffickers and the financial elite run by Michael Martelli, who was a former president and who is running the show. And that's the story on Omarosa. Now, I can tell you that I have read Hillary Clinton's book, What Happened? What happened? Well, it's really not complicated. The American people found out that the Hillary Clinton who was presented to them by the media in the 2000s as Senator Clinton and then Secretary of State Clinton was not the kindly grandmother that she depicted herself, not the elder statesman, but in fact a short-tempered, venal, self-centered, egotistical, entitled, greedy, vicious, nasty, and foul-mouthed woman. This is the portrait of her that you can see in the Clintons' War on Women, the book I wrote, which is the essential oppo dump on Hillary and her co-conspirator husband. Never think that they are not a team, despite the fact that they do not have a child in common. But it is interesting that in her book, Hillary Clinton says the following. Then, on August 8th, Trump's longest-time consigliere, Roger Stone, who cut his teeth as one of Richard Nixon's dirty tricksters, bragged to a group of Florida Republicans that he was in communications with Assange and predicted an October surprise. This was a shocking admission made in public from Trump's longest-serving political advisor. Stone made similar statements on August 12th, 14th, 15th, and 18th. On the 21st, he said, "Trust me, it will soon be Podesta's time in the barrel." As I have noted, we had a good chance that Stone's email might have been hacked, but we didn't know for sure. Stone kept at it. She goes on to say, meanwhile, Roger Stone continued to tweet warnings that WikiLeaks was preparing to drop a bomb on us, one that would destroy my campaign and land me in prison. He was such a bizarre character, it was hard to know how serious to take anything he said. But we didn't know what other dirty tricks may be coming our way. I'm bizarre. Hillary Clinton banished Bill Clinton's abandoned son, Danny Williams, and essentially consigned him to a life of poverty, her husband's own flesh and blood. That's at the same time she's telling us she thinks black lives matter. Well, they don't matter if you're Danny Williams. Hillary Clinton is the one who hired the heavy-handed private detectives and nasty lawyers to badger, threaten, intimidate, and bully the various victims of her husband, either rape or sexual assault victims. How do we know this? David Brock's book, The Education of Hillary Rodham, documents it precisely. Who's bizarre, Mrs. Clinton? To be very clear, Julian Assange and WikiLeaks tweet on numerous occasions that they have the goods on Hillary and that they will release them. This is not rocket science. When I said that I was communicated, I had in all those cases qualified by saying that. Once I read this online, I had asked a journalist friend to get me a confirmation, which he did, off the record. Therefore, we have the information on WikiLeaks in their tweets, and we have confirmation. Yes, I definitely reported it right here at InfoWars, among other places, also at the Stone Cold Truth, and in my Twitter feed. It all turns out, of course, to be accurate. This is Hillary Clinton, again, aping this argument put forward by Adam Schiff, the real Schiff head, who is the head of the ranking Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee. By the way, I don't know why they call it that in view of the facts. But it is also true that she buys into the whole notion that I knew about John Podesta's email being hacked in advance. I never said anything of the kind. FactCheck.org, financed by the Annenberg Foundation, has confirmed that there's just no evidence that that is the case. Now, I learned from Dr. Jerry Corsi in an extraordinary opposition research memo that he gave me on October 1st that I will be admitting as an exhibit in my testimony next week, about the extent of John and Tony Podesta and Bill and Hillary Clinton's business dealings in Mother Russia, that they were the ones in bed with the oligarchs around Putin. There's the uranium deal, the banking deal, the lucrative Gazprom contract, and that the entire narrative was now fair game. Let's remember the context. The Clinton people are dumping on Paul Manafort at this juncture, and they are hounding him out of the Trump campaign on the basis of nothing, when they themselves have worked with Manafort on Ukrainian issues. Little hypocrisy there, no. And then, of course, the charge that Trump is in bed with the Russians is invented by Podesta himself to distract from these relationships. In other words, there was a candidate in bed with the Russians. Unfortunately, that candidate is Hillary Clinton. Her book is largely unreadable. It's clear to me that she did not write it. She regurgitates the same lies about Guccifer 2.0, that he was a Russian asset. We don't know that to be true. Or that the Russians hacked the DNC. In fact, that even appears to be unprovable. It is the basis of the lawsuit against me by the Obama front, and of course they cannot prove that in law. In fact, based on the Nation magazine article of several weeks ago, and the writings of not only the experts William Binney and Ray McGovern, both counterintelligence agencies high in our intelligence bureaucracy before they riffed out and started telling the truth, both of them indicate that based on the science, the download times, and other measures, it's far more likely that any information stolen from the DNC was loaded to portable drives, most likely thumb drives, and taken out the back door. The Democratic diplomat, Craig Murray, says that he received this material. He implies that is from Seth Rich, but he won't say, and that he passed it on to WikiLeaks. Case closed. This problem solved. But the U.S. Congress has voted to punish Russia for the hacking that they cannot provably be tied to. And it is an article of faith. Indeed, I would say the absolute premise of the House and Senate Intelligence Committees in Mr. Mueller's investigation is that the Russians hacked the DNC, something that, again, we have no proof of. I'll be speaking about this, of course, in my testimony before the House Intelligence Committee next week. What Alex Jones told you was true. They insist to this day that this be behind closed doors, even though Adam Schiff and Congressman Swalwell and Congressman Spire and Congressman Himes and others in this retinue have slimed me in public, have said things that are demonstrably and provably not true in public session. They now, of course, do not want to allow me the opportunity to respond in public session. What is it they fear? I mean, I have very little experience on television. I think it would be a fair fight, but they're not interested in that. They're interested in cosseting me. They will not agree to an immediate release of the transcript. They'll let my lawyers examine the transcript at some point later. So we've seen this act before. You testify to the best of your recollection. You have a lot to say. And then they mischaracterize. They lie about what you said behind closed doors, that you love Vladimir Putin, that you want to move to Russia. Who knows? As someone whose family was mowed down by Russian tanks in Budapest in 1956, the idea that I work for the Russians is offensive. It's also a lie. Doesn't matter how many bots on Twitter say, Stone, you're a traitor, you work with the Russians, you're going to jail. None of those things, I assure you, is true. So you people don't have much to look forward to. But in this particular case, they will not even allow my wife to enter the room. They will strip search us or make us go through mags. There'll be no recording devices. They want no record of what they intend to do. All 20 members of the committee will be present. There'll be 2 questioners from the Republican Party, 2 questioners from the minority Democratic Party. The Republicans have named their questioners. They are Trey Gowdy and Tom Rooney, both very able and decent men, and I think good legislators. And the Democrats have yet to name their designated hitters, but one would have to hope for Adam Schiff and perhaps Jackie Spire. That would be a day at the beach. But let's see how this works out. I am going to have an InfoWars camera embedded with me in the hours both before and after my testimony. So you're going to get an inside look at how this works right here at InfoWars. You're not going to want to miss this. We're going to Disneyland on the Potomac, folks, and we're going to face down the deep state and their running dog lackeys on the House Lack of Intelligence Committee, where they are running out of steam on the so-called Russian meme. There we see Chris Ruddy at Newsmax using the worst possible photo of me that he could find. It is going to be informative, and I think it is going to be very important to recognize that the entire Russian narrative, their Russian delusion, collusion, is running out of steam. I am going to release my statement in advance, as Mr. Comey did, and I'm going to clear up a lot of misconceptions that have been put forward by the committee. Follow these developments here at InfoWars because they're going to have it first. We are going to meet with the media both before and after my session to make sure that there are no misrepresentations about what happened. I want to ask you again to take your part in history. Go to the Infowars.com store and get your Clinton rape T-shirt. When these are gone, they are gone. They're a part of history. They're going to end up in the Smithsonian. But when you go to the store and you buy these for your family, and I'd get as many as you could, you're helping the fight for freedom. You're helping our expansion. You're helping us to continue to be the tip of the spear and fight for the Trump agenda and the Trump nationalist reform fight, the vital struggle for the survival of America and Western civilization. So please go to the store and you can accomplish all that. I'm Roger Stone, and I'll be back.
My fellow Americans, let me make this perfectly clear. You're listening to Roger Stone on InfoWars.
Thank you, Mr. President. When I worked for Richard Nixon, behind his back, we would call him RN or 37. That was the affectionate staff name for him. Called me on my birthday every year from 1974 till the time he passed. A truly great American who negotiated a arms limitation treaty with the Russians, opened the door to China, ended the Vietnam War, desegregated the public schools, and of course, saved Israel from annihilation in the 1973 Yom Kippur War over the objections of Henry Kissinger. Quite a record, domestic and national, particularly when you compare him to our more recent presidents. I am Roger Stone, of course, sitting in for Alex Jones. Some of you know, and we broke the story here, that I have been sued in the District of Columbia, along with Donald Trump and the Trump campaign, by a group of Obama associates clearly fronting for the former president, including a former White House counsel. And the allegation in this harassment lawsuit is that I worked with the Russians to hack the DNC and give the information to WikiLeaks, the very question being examined by the House and Senate committees, and a false narrative that continues to bounce around the mainstream media. My lawyers have now moved in court to dismiss and also to clarify with what's called an anti-SLAPP motion. Now, when these lawsuit was filed against me, I was in Austin that day. I remember it quite well. It was dizzying how much coverage the allegations in the lawsuit got. But when we filed our response eviscerating the lawsuit and we made those documents available to the media, well, it was largely crickets, with a few notable exceptions, where some legal-oriented websites printed stories. But, of course, the truth never catches up with the lie. This has been an expensive fight. I've already incurred over $150,000 in legal fees just for the preparation of these papers, and recalling that I also have to have attorneys who accompany me to the House and Senate to walk through those rodeos and those fishing expeditions. If they cannot sideline you, if they can't destroy you or beat you in the election, perhaps they can bankrupt you. I think that's what this is about. I'm not in as tough a shape as, say, Paul Manafort or General Flynn, whose legal fees could run to the millions. But if you want to help, my friends have set up a legal defense fund. It's called WhoFramedRogerStone.com, WhoFramedRogerStone.com, kind of a clever play there on an old movie. But you can read about the challenges we face, and you can make a contribution, and I would be most grateful. Alex Jones has made a contribution for which I am very grateful. This is going to be a fight. And I cannot bear it alone, and I appreciate your support. Speaking of support, however, we really need you to go to the Infowars.com store, where you've got an extraordinary number of specials going on. I strongly like the Emmerich's Essential line of organic household products, which are 50% off. You're getting zinc oxide, herbal bug spray, peppermint mouthwash, unscented body wash, pure tree shampoo, long-lasting natural deodorant. None of the chemicals, none of the phony stuff that's in there. These are health-oriented, all-natural products, the very best you can get. So, folks, help yourself. Help us here at InfoWars. Help the fight for freedom. Help the fight for the First Amendment. Help the fight against the tech left as they seek to censor us. I'm Roger Stone.
Let's go to Debit in Florida. Debit in Florida, you're on the air.
Great. Hey, thank you so much. Listen, I have bought your product, and I gotta say they're amazing. Anyone who's on the fence, buy it, because I've got Caveman, Superman Vitality, Secret 12, Vitamin Mineral Fusion. I've got the body armor.
Wow, thank you.
Wow.
You're the type of listener that makes it all possible. Which nutraceutical does you like best?
I really like the Vitamin Mineral Fusion, to be honest. That's
amazing.
Really incredible. I drank it in the morning, and I swear to you, I felt incredible. Like I haven't felt weak. My morning was fantastic, and I love you guys. I love the InfoWars crew, and I just want to, I want to take this opportunity to tell anybody out there who's on the fence. Just buy it. You will love it. I'm telling you, I've never bought a bad product.
What you find in our news is the same thing you find in our products at InfoWarsLife.com. It's a win-win. InfoWarsLife.com.